following podcast contains spoilers, adult language, and unfortunately, folks, we're going to have to close the podcast due to some shark activity.
Only for 24 seconds. Just 24 seconds.
I didn't agree to that.
Look. Yeah, well, look, our podcast will be open to everyone, all right? Because as you all know, aim for the head means friendship.
It doesn't.
This is a message from the Office of Emergency Preparedness. Due to the recent crisis, we ask that you remain in your homes. Do not attempt to communicate or interact with the creatures, even if they are people you know.
Lock your doors. Bar your windows. Evil is coming. It's time for Aim for the Head, a horror apocalypse entertainment podcast. And now, here are your hosts, Diana and Steve.
Hi, and welcome back to Aim for the Head podcast. I'm Diana.
And I'm Mayor Vaughn. No, I'm Steve.
And here's
Hello.
to swimming with bow-legged women, because this week we are super excited to be covering the original summer blockbuster, 1975's classic horror film, Jaws. Da-da-da-da-da-da. And, yeah, so Steve, you went first our last podcast episode talking about your quick thoughts on it, so it's kind of my turn to go first, and I'll just be brief for once in my life. This is one of my favorite movies of all time, and it, regardless of genre, whether you're talking about scary movies, blockbuster movies, whatever, it is without a doubt, it's in my top 5 or 10 of movies of all time. It's one of my favorites. How about you? How do you feel about Jaws, Steve? It's okay. Yeah, it's like half and half, and that's all we need to talk about. So goodbye, folks.
I really. So yeah, we'll see you next week. No, yeah. I mean, this movie. What can you say? It is just a classic in every word, and I think so many movies that have come after it have, just out and out stolen bits from this film in terms of how it was filmed, shots that were used. I mean, it is the influence of this story and this movie on all of the stuff that has come after it it's immeasurable. I mean, this is, like you said, this is like the original or one of the original blockbusters. Yeah. I think maybe The Exorcist might have a little argument with that it's the first, because they were kind of right there. But clearly the way Hollywood makes movies changed because of this movie.
Agreed.
I mean, it is just unbelievable, the influence that this movie had. And then on top of it, it's just super entertaining and you can watch it a million times, and every time it is a great watch.
Yeah. Let's put it this way. I know this is going to sound like braggy, but this is the first time that we've ever done a podcast about a movie that we love. And there's plenty of ones we've done on movies we both love, whatever. I didn't rewatch this over the weekend. I don't need to. I know this movie so well, so backwards and forwards, that I mean, I watch it when I do watch it, and I have the what's it called on the closed captioning. I'm usually doing lines of the people that are in the background. Like, I love the meeting where they're talking to all the business owners and they're like, are you going to close the beaches? And they say yes. I love that woman who's like, that's not funny. I don't think that's funny at all. I don't think that's funny at all.
I don't think it's funny.
I love her.
I like it when he goes, only 24 hours. And then someone goes, 24 hours is like 3 weeks.
So this is, spoiler alert, I didn't watch it again. Because, folks, I don't need to. I've seen it so many times, I didn't need to. Now, to be fair, I did. I always kill time before we get started, and I had it on in the background because it's great background. Because you can count on it. It's great comfort food. But yeah, I'm right there with you. It's one of those that it's so it's great in so many categories. It's a great scary movie. It's a great blockbuster. It's an epic. It's funny. There are some flat out funny moments in this movie.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and it's just fantastic. I love it.
All right, so we'll see everybody next week.
Okay, bye-bye. So we're going to follow some of our normal procedure. We're going to throw in a couple of extras. Normally when we cover a movie, we'll do a little bit more background on, story, how it came together, things like that. We'll talk a little bit more trivia and notes about the movie. And before we get talking about some of our deeper points, top moments of the movie itself, we'll talk a little bit about our personal experiences with the movie. So first, let's get started with a description. And I didn't depend on one location. I just Googled it, and AI wrote this description for me.
Ooh.
So take it away, Robot Steve.
All right. Well, it's good to know that you used up like 26,000 gallons of water for this. So well done, Diana.
You're welcome.
Well done. All right. So the movie in question is, of course, The Jaws. And this is the 1975 film by Mr. Steven Spielberg. And the description that we have, thanks to AI, is as follows. Jaws is a suspenseful thriller about a great white shark terrorizing the New England resort town of Amity Island. Police Chief Martin Brody wants to close the beaches, but the mayor refuses due to fears of economic damage. The story follows Brody as he teams up with a marine biologist, Matt Hooper, and a professional shark hunter, Quint, to hunt and kill the shark before more people are eaten. And that is your description.
One of the reasons that I Googled it was because the description that's on IMDb, which sometimes is my go-to depending on where, because I want something that's just quick. I want like no more than this, like 2 to 3 sentences at most. And the description, if you go to IMDb, says residents of Long Island. And I'm like, I'm sorry, where?
Where?
Yeah. And I was so angry at that description that I just ran away from IMDb. I'd never noticed that before. And it made me so angry that I spent the last 24 hours finding all of the reasons why it's not Long Island. First of all, in the first like 20 minutes of the movie, they mention, people, if they don't go here, they'll go to other places like, Connecticut, Long Island. And I'm like, well, they can't go to Long Island instead of here if they're on Long Island.
Long Island.
So anyway, I would just say I like the description that I found because to me, it is a stand-in for, either Nantucket or Martha's Vineyard, but it's vague enough that it's just New England town, a New England island works for me. I'm fine with that. But it's not New York. The whole point is that and we'll get into some of that, but the whole point of the movie is that there's a territorialism, a townyism about the island that the Brodies will never be a part of because they're not from there.
They're the
On
outsiders.
top of it, they're from, and they're from New York anyway. So
right.
But anyway, so that I'm not always a fan of the AI for that reason, but this culled the description from multiple places, and yes, it's New England, people. Not a non-specific New England, but it's New England. It's not Long Island. So screw you, IMDb. What do you?
All right. Well done.
Anyway,
just antagonize IMDb.
I know. Let's get them on our bad side. So before we get into some details, let's talk writer and director, and then we'll get into our sort of personal experiences with the film itself. So let's do that.
So our writer, and there's actually 2 writers for the film. The writers were Peter Benchley, of course, is obviously the man who wrote the original novel that the movie's based on, and then another guy named Carl Gottlieb punched up and worked on the screenplay as well. And Carl Gottlieb is actually in the movie. He plays the the reporter journalist guy who is part of the town council, who tells Brody that he's going to bury Miss Kittner's ad in like the back of the paper with the grocery ads, if you remember that sequence.
Yep.
in the movie. That's Carl Gottlieb, that guy. So he somehow parlayed his script writing into getting a little screen time as well. Um, and again, it's based on Peter Benchley's, massive like #1 best-selling novel that had come out several years earlier, and so they took it and they obviously modified it a little bit, and changes were made. Some things were
Yeah.
were tweaked here or there that we can get into when we get into our points. But again, for the most part, it's an incredible, as you said, incredibly entertaining script. It is both funny and scary and serious and silly and all. It runs the whole roller coaster and brings up a lot of interesting themes about the good of the many versus the good of the few, and
Yeah.
is the mayor, is he like this the straight out bad guy? I mean, he kind of deep down, he's got the, what's the point of the island if everybody's out of business? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, yes, he's clearly the villain in that he wants the beaches open regardless, but at the same time he understands if the beaches ain't open, they're not gonna eat.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's got a lot of layers to it. There are a lot of levels to it. It's well written, and obviously part of the reason why we love this movie so much. And then our director is, of course, Steven Spielberg. Perhaps you've heard of him.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Young
Certainly,
guy. I think he's gonna do well.
he has a very promising future. Yes. Yeah. I mean, multiple Oscar winner. Certainly involved with so many movies that are iconic, that are classic, that are, all-time greats. Whether it's E.T. or Schindler's List or Close Encounters or any of the Indiana Jones movies. I mean, he was one of the first guys to work with Bob Zemeckis, and so there's a little connection to the Back to the Future series of films. I mean, yeah, the guy's done a million things. He's amazing. It's Steven Spielberg. We all know who he is, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
so yeah, and this was like really his first major
Hmm.
directorial film. He'd done Duel, which in many ways is very similar to Jaws in the setup. It's this giant truck that's kind of terrorizing this on the road salesman played by Dennis Weaver, and it's in like the Southwest, so it's like a lot of lonely stretches of road where there's nobody and nothing, and Dennis Weaver's just driving along in this big truck, like you know almost kills him repeatedly, is running him off the road and all kinds of craziness, and so anyway, that he'd done that first, and then this was his first major thing, and oh my God, he did pretty darn good. so
Yeah. You think?
so yeah, so anyway, that is your writers and your director.
Fantastic. So we also wanted, before we get into our individual top moments, just real briefly talk about our personal experiences with the film and how we first came to it. Do you want to go first? Or do you want me to go first?
Oh, ladies first.
Oh,
This
well,
this
aren't
this
you
is this is
lovely?
your birth movie and all, after
It
all.
is my birth movie because they are celebrating the 50th anniversary, and so am I celebrating my 50th anniversary.
But see, that's so weird because you're only 32.
That's so funny. You're adorable. Look at you being cute. So I was only like 5 months old when this was released, so I didn't catch it in the theaters. But HBO was so ubiquitous when I was growing up, and my dad was a serial like tape it off of HBO, and we had, without question, like from the late 70s, early 80s, the top 50 blockbusters that got released onto HBO, we had them on like blank tapes.
Sure.
Like a blank tape full of all the Indiana Jones movies that were released up until then. And we had the Star Wars movies, and we had the, Back to the Future, and you name it, all on there. And of course, we had Jaws. And I honestly, it's one of those movies, kind of like Star Wars, kind of like Indiana Jones, that were part of that rotation for my dad, that I don't recall the very first time I saw it because I was probably
A wee
too
child.
too young to have
Yes.
should have watched it. But did, and it didn't affect me that badly. I don't
Wow.
think. I
mean,
hope so.
I
But
mean,
it's
you've not gotten in any sort of pool of water ever since then, but no, it hasn't
please,
affected you.
But so I honestly, for the life of me, don't recall the very, very first time, but I would assume that I was probably somewhere in the 8 to like 7, 8, 9 range.
Mhm.
So we're talking early 80s. And then, you know, of course it affected. I mean, I've then watched it like a gajillion times after that, you know. How do you, as an 8-year-old, be able to like hang out with your friends at the pool and go da 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 and know what it means? You know what I mean? You had to be able to do that with all your friends and pretend to be the shark and, you know, whatever. Anytime you're on a flotation device, someone knocks it over and they're like, "Oh, Alex Kintner." So because when you're kids, that stuff's funny. So yeah, so for me, I don't have a real strong recollection of when the very first time is that I saw it. I just feel like it was always a part of that rotation, and I know that that first viewing had to have been in that like 8 or 9 range when I was a kid, and just and if I was young, then definitely my sister was probably about 4, and she shouldn't have been watching it either. So let's talk about that. But she's fine too. She's totally fine. We are all
She's
emotionally
fine.
stable.
Oh,
We're great.
Look,
We're all great.
I can vouch for this woman that yes, there is nothing at all loopy about her.
What'd be funny is my brother. I'm gonna go visit him in like another week and a half, and he is just a scotch under 4 years older than me, and probably has a stronger memory of when I first saw some of those movies, because he was probably, if I saw it when I was 8 or 9,
He would have been
he
like
was
12.
like 11 or 12.
Yeah.
So he probably has a stronger memory. So I'd have to check with him and see if he remembers like that exact time, because I'm sure he was there. So yeah, what about you? What do you remember as your first Jaws experience?
Oh my God, it is burned into my brain like it was yesterday.
I love it.
Yeah, and I should just point out that my parents, particularly my mom, she was like, let's just say she is a rule follower. Okay. When it comes to children. So if there's like a rated R movie, there is no way that any of her children are going to see that until they're like 50. Okay. So I was not one of those kids where it's like, hey, you're 7, let's go see The Exorcist. No, that wasn't me, So there was no chance I was going to see this movie like in the theater or something, for reals. So my first experience, I'll never forget it. It was September of 1979, and good old ABC had showed the movie on TV. Okay.
Oh.
And so just like you were talking about, your dad, taping the movies off HBO, we back in the late 70s, my dad got like, I think the very first VCR ever made.
I believe you.
And it was, I'm not kidding you, this thing, it weighed about 80 pounds.
Yep.
And it was like 2 feet by 1 foot in dimensions, and probably about 1 foot wide.
Was it a top loader?
It was a top loader,
yeah.
And it had actual buttons that were like spring loaded buttons, and it was just like a tape player. So you had a play button, a stop button, a pause, a record, a fast forward, and a rewind. And when you wanted to record, you had to hit play and record at the same time.
Yep, I remember.
It had a remote, but the remote was something you plugged into it. It had a little cord, and the only thing the remote would do would turn on the recording or turn off the recording.
Yeah, it was plugged in, and the cord went all the way. The whole point was so that you could run it from the couch, but there was no such thing as remote. That was the remote.
No,
it was still attached.
Oh yeah, I mean this it was
Kids these
amazing, and
days
so
have no idea.
they have no clue. But so like so we would record movies off of television, and then when the commercials came, you'd turn it off, and then you had to remember that when the movie came back on, you had to turn it back on, or you don't get any more of the movie.
Yeah.
And so we have whole movies where it's like, oh yeah, we missed like 10 minutes here because we forgot to turn it back on. Sorry, but anyway, they showed ABC showed it, and my parents had seen the movie when it had come out, and had freaked them out big time. So they're like, we're all gonna watch it. So it was like a family event, right? And so yeah, so we sat down and we watched Jaws, and then because we taped it that night for literally the next probably 3 or 4 years, that was the only version of Jaws I'd ever seen.
And I'm sure it was heavily edited.
Oh my God, heavily edited and extra scenes added, which
Yep.
we'll talk about.
Yep.
I mean, there's a scene with Quint that whenever I think of the movie, I always expect to see that scene, and it's not in
Yep.
any of the theatricals,
Yep.
and so, but yeah, that was the thing, and just like like you, I mean. Oh my God! Like I did not want to like go into the bathtub after that movie came out. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
and my mom's family owns a cabin up on a lake in Wisconsin, which is it's a lake. It's like a freshwater lake, and like nope, I'm not going in there.
Nope.
What are you crazy? You nuts? You think me go in that? I mean, so yeah, I mean, it clearly affected me big time. And like I said, it's just I can close my eyes and I can almost recall, like I can see like the commercials for like this Sunday night, Jaws, and the scene that they would always show was when they've caught the tiger shark and it's on the dock.
Yep.
And they have the big hook in its mouth and they pull its mouth open and they kind of like start to string it up.
Yep.
That they use that sequence, like that shot, and then like inside the mouth they had the graphic that said Jaws. I mean, it was it's unbelievable. I mean, I almost like it was yesterday. I can close my eyes and I'm right there the very first time I saw it. And it just like you said. I mean, it just. The movie is such an impactful film.
Yeah.
It's you know what I mean. It's just like, oh yeah, I remember the first time Ben Gardner's head popped out and I went screaming out of the room. You know what I mean? I mean, we all do. I mean, yeah. So, but that was it. It was September of 1979. So I would have been 10, going on 11. When I saw it, and honestly, I didn't see like the full like theatrical version, which is obviously got a lot more violence than I had seen.
Yep.
I did not see that probably until like the mid 80s. Where again either on HBO or Skinamax or Showtime or one of those channels, or maybe like the home. Like the home video store, like the little mom and pop's video stores that were starting to show up at that point, rented it that way. But for us, it was always like, why do we want to rent Jaws? We have it,
right?
So it was never a thing. So yeah, it took a long time for me to see the theatrical and go, oh wow, there's a lot more brutality in this movie than I knew. But yeah, that was it for me. It was September of 1979, and I was, like I said, I was 10, almost 11, and yeah, it was something I'll never forget.
Oh my God, yes. It's funny too because there was always the extra added element of growing up in the Boston area and being near Martha's Vineyard, which was this filming location, and like I was saying at the beginning, that they never say that the movie takes place on Nantucket or Martha's Vineyard or whatever, but it's like New England seafaring island town or whatever.
Absolutely.
So it's very Martha's Vineyard for sure. Beeman, obviously, because they filmed it there. So I think there was also this sense of pride with the movie that we felt like it was, because back in those days, there were not a lot of movies that were filmed in the Boston area. Like, God bless, Ben and Matt, who brought so much business to Boston, and some, there's some other filmmakers who have done some stuff in Boston as well, and it's become like more of a hub. of filmmaking, but back in those days, it was unheard of. Maybe something was filmed at some random building out in the suburbs somewhere, but for something to be and they filmed for months and months, and
they did.
And so for something to be so connected with Massachusetts, it just felt like it was like, there's a level of pride when you watch the movie that I'm like, those are my people. Those are my people. Especially, I love that line when he's like, get out there, those are your people. He's like, I don't know these people. They're from like Connecticut and wherever. I'm like, it's a
I'm
great
all by
line.
myself out there.
Yeah, these aren't my people. All right. Anyway, so we could go on and on and on, and we probably are. So we warn you in advance, it's probably going to be a long podcast. We both love this movie. There's lots to talk about.
This podcast could definitely easily be over an hour, people.
Yeah, so set your timer. All right, so let's get rolling then. Let's get cracking. And one thing's for sure, the opener of the movie is, there's so many things that are iconic, but the opening scene, and I include some stuff that I find great, and you included some stuff that you found great in that opening scene. But the opening scene with, the young couple, or the guy that's trying to get with the girl, and she's running across the beach, and she ends up jumping in the water and the skinny dipping, and it's so, there's a couple of things I wrote something, you wrote something, but for me, I feel like there's so much that's genius in that opener, but to me, to start off the movie strong is you see the after effects of an attack. You'd never see the shark in the first scene. You see his view as he's coming up, and you see that, and it is so, just the fear in Chrissy, and especially when she's dunked and comes back up and does that, like, you're like, oh my God, it just, you feel this pit in your stomach. So, but I think that's one of the, and we'll talk about it more because it's utilized so many times in this movie. Some of it was for practical reasons, for Spielberg, because of, the shark not, working properly all the time. But it created this level of fear about something you don't even get fully until you're almost halfway through the movie before you get a real good visual on the actual shark. And I just think that that's just brilliant. And that's one of those lasting things that Spielberg left his mark with this movie, and others would take up the mantle and go, you know what? Sometimes you don't have to show what the scary thing is. It's the imagination that makes it the scary thing. So, yeah, love that part of the opening scene. Yeah.
Yeah, Ridley Scott very famously referred to that as the guy in the suit. Which when he made Alien, when you watch that movie, it comes out, 4 or 5 years after this film, he made the very conscious decision of like, look, I'm really not going to show the aliens, particularly the full sized version. We see a lot of the little guy and the face hugger and all that, but the big guy, no, because Ridley Scott's thing about all the monster movies he'd seen as a kid is that, on some level, everyone goes into it going, well, that's just it's a guy in a suit.
Yeah.
That's the monster, because it's not real, because, they're not real, and so it takes away from the horror when you see the guy in the suit, because that it's a guy in the suit. And so that's why he minimized the use, and again, let your imagination, which is infinitely more powerful than anything Hollywood can come up with ever.
Right.
And again, this is something I'm sure got from Spielberg with Jaws, because you're right. When you see poor, Susan Backline getting, pulled around in the water, and it's dark, and the water is almost black because of the day for night shooting they're doing, right? And so you can't see anything at all, and yet she's clearly in pain and terrified, and oh my God, it's you're like, what is it? Oh my God, what is it? You know what I mean? And your imagination is now kicked into overtime. What could it possibly be, right?
Right.
And for me, when she's in the water, when she kind of gets thrown to like the buoy
Yeah.
that's out there, and she's like, oh thank God, and she's holding on to it for just a second, and you think, well, maybe she's gonna be okay, and then like it just, the whole buoy gets pulled over and she gets dragged off of it, and you're like, nope, you ain't getting away, kid, you know. But yeah, I mean, yeah, that, and then what, the end, when, you know, she's finally like, she's like begging for it to stop and everything, and then she just goes under.
Ugh.
And she's gone.
Yep.
You know, yeah. Oh, yeah. That because you're like, oh my God, what is it?
Yeah.
What could possibly be doing that? You know? Oh yeah, yeah.
It's amazing, and the structure, and it's such a quick scene from the moment that you see the approach of the shark coming up to her while she's sort of treading water there. From the moment of the approach to her being pulled under for the last time, and then it's just silence. It's what, 30 seconds, maybe a minute,
maybe
tops.
Yeah.
It's a quick scene, but the structure of it, like you said, there's, you know, you don't see it. It, you know, first it's like almost a nibble, like pulls her down, and then it's again, and then it's, you know, drags her around, and then she gets thrown on the buoy, and then you're like, you have this moment of, like you said, oh, she's okay. She can just climb up and she might be okay. And then it's all over from there. But it's like the structure of it, the way it toys with your emotions too, on top of, you don't know what it is. Like, we know because it's a story about a shark and blah, blah, blah. And we've all seen the poster. So we know what's there, but you don't know what it looks like. You don't know.
Right.
You know, you're picturing something crazy in your head because you don't have anything to attach to it. So it's scary because you can't see it, and then the structure of how it toys with your emotions, just wonderful, wonderful. Your point you included was about the actual filming itself, like some of the technicalities of that.
Well, just when you know it opened, you know, we the movie starts and you get this like the like almost like the POV of the shark like cruising through the water, and it's going through all the weeds, right? And first of all, that's scary to me because when I was a kid, I'm like, oh my God, what's behind the weeds? Is the shark gonna jump out and get me? You know, because you don't know, right?
Yeah.
And then when it finishes, and of course you get the iconic John Williams score, and then it sort of smash cuts to this like group of 20 somethings that are like on the beach, and you know, the guy's playing the harmonica. You know, there's always the douchebag with the harmonica that's there playing, and they got a keg and they're drinking, and it's like a you know, June night, right? And so it's really nice weather, and they got the fire going and the sunset, and it's this thing, and there are people that are making out, and you know, some guy's trying to get the second base over to the left and all this, and you're kind of going through all this, and here's this dude who's got his eyes on Chrissy Watkins, right? And she's kind of off by herself, and he comes over and sits down to her, and then she gets up, like you said, and goes like sprinting to the beach because she wants to go swimming.
Yeah.
And from that point, then there's this, I think, this really cool dolly shot where we follow her running down the beach. And not only is she running down the beach, she's like taking her clothes off as she's going. And of course, this poor guy is like following behind, and he's clearly been overserved and you know, is struggling, right, and everything, and it's just a really, really cool shot that they do where they dolly all the way, you know. It's got to be probably about a 30-40 yard dolly shot where she's just running, and you know, he's like, wait, what's your name? And she's like, Chrissy. It's like, what are we doing? Going swimming, you know, and all that, and of course you're just like, no, don't go in the water, you fool, you know. But yeah, I really love that tracking shot or dolly shot that they do there, and it's right off the bat, and Spielberg is doing something that is, you know, the ocean, and it just shows you, you know, what a really innovative filmmaker he is, because a lot of directors, you know what, what? They set the camera up on the tripod, and that's where it is. And they shoot their scene, and then they move it to somewhere else, and they shoot the scene again, and then they'll cut it together in post to make it kind of jump and come alive. And here, the very first shot of the movie with people, we have Spielberg doing, a fairly complex dolly shot outdoors, on the dunes. I mean, it's really cool. And it just very, very springs to mind. I always think of that, and I'm just like, man, I wonder how long it took them to put those dolly tracks down, and how long did it take them to even them out so it would be relatively flat. And I mean, just there's so many technical things about making movies where you're like, that's impressive,
And the fact that they film it, and it's like, yes, when you're watching it, it's the non-edited version. There's really, like, you don't really get any actual Chrissy nudity until she's actually in the water and she's floating. You get a little bit there, and it's just like brief kind of glimpses. But when she's running, nothing. And there's the way they just filmed it so spectacularly that it's like this tease. So you are teased along with the dude who's following her.
Yeah.
Like he's like, I'm coming, and you're like, oh my god. And
he ends up like cartwheeling down the dunes onto the beach, and he's just like falling around, and finally he just passes out on the beach, right? I mean, he's out, and you're kind of like, thank God, because if he would have gone in the water, he would have gotten eaten too. I mean, it was like he's lucky that he was so messed up he couldn't move. And just technically, when they shot scenes in the water with her, what they did was she was wearing like a harness, and there were ropes tied to them, one going to the left and one going to the right, and there were guys like grips on the shore, and they like attached like 70 or 80 pounds of weight to these lines, and then these guys would like yank
they just
super hard, and that's how she gets that kind of jerky one side, the other, that kind of like something's got her kind of a thing. So again, really kind of innovative practical effect to make you think that, oh my God, what's up with you? It's not like she's in the water just like kind of splashing. I mean, she's physically being moved in a way that you can't move unless something big is moving you, So okay. I think that's really cool too.
Yeah, agreed. Right out of this scene, we meet Chief Brody real quick, and it's this really great establishing scene where he's waking up first thing in the morning, and it's him and his wife, and they're sort of just establishing how their relationship is, their relationship with their kids. I love that, when they're like, oh, did they feed the dogs? Are they somewhere outside? Or da-da-da. And I'm like, oh my God, tell me you're a 70s movie without telling me you're a 70s movie. Because the parents are like, where are the children? We're not sure. And I'm sure if another generation watched this, it'd be like, how do you not know where your children are? And for me, I was like, oh, they woke up early in the morning and probably poured themselves some cereal and went outside. Like, that's just how our childhood was.
That's how you did it. Yeah, you went out. You went out when the sun came up, and then eventually either you got hungry or the sun went down and you went home. I mean, that's what you did.
That was life.
and your parents had like a very vague idea of where you may be.
Yeah, exactly. It's without question, it is the most accurate part of Stranger Things that I can ever tell to people when they're like, how did the parents not? I'm like, no. You had to have grown up in that time. Yeah. All of those kids are exactly what all of us did. Yeah. Absolutely.
And there were no phones, you didn't have your phone on you to call. You know what I mean? Yeah. It was definitely, you're right. And we meet Chief Martin Brody, which of course is played by Roy Scheider. And then his wife, which is played by Lorraine Gary, and then he has two small boys, Michael and what's the name of the other kid? The little one. I'm blanking on his name, but and it's interesting enough because that little boy is going to grow up to be Dennis Quaid. How about that, people?
At some point in his life. And
at point in his life, it's
Sean,
Sean, that's it. Sean, Michael and Sean, yes. And because Dennis Quaid ends up playing in Jaws 3, the 3D movie. They still kind of try and keep the Brody family involved, although by that point, Roy Scheider's like, yeah, I ain't doing no more of these.
Yeah, I'm done.
Pretty much, yeah. And so they make Dennis Quaid plays Sean Brody, who is now grown up, and he is an oceanographer, like kind of like Matt Hooper, and he and Louis Gossett Jr. are running like a theme park under the water with big sharks. Which is a really stupid idea.
It is really stupid idea.
Yeah. But anyway, we digress. So we meet the family, and like you said, like the kids are out playing on the swing set and, out in the yard, and the chief gets up and his wife is like, where are the kids? And she's like, oh, they're out in the yard. And she's like, we're in Amity. You say, yeah. And then he goes, okay, they're in the yard, not too far from the cat.
Which is another example of how this is not in Long Island. It is so obviously Boston adjacent because of them making fun of the accent. And that's another one of those point of pride things. Like when they would do that scene, everybody that watched would be like, that's right. Don't say the gas.
That's right. That's right. It's a yad. And I think it, like you had pointed out, it starts right away to establish that these people, outsiders,
mm-hmm. Not from here.
Not from there, not part of the community, just moved in. So they are coming in with, and they make a point about, he's like, man, the sun never used to come in through the window like this. And she's like, well, that's because this is like our first summer.
Yeah.
And the sun is in a different place, what I mean? That, just in terms of where the sun, when it comes up in the morning, where it is in the sky, all that. This is our first time. So again, we're going into this. He has no experience for a 4th of July on Amity. He has no idea what's normal, what's not normal.
It's his first summer, we find out in a later scene.
Yeah. And so again, outsider, not one of them, one of us. No, none of that, right? Not someone who grew up in Amity and now has the job. This is a guy who has just been brought in. He's kind of like a ringer that they brought in. We find out he's like a former New York City policeman that they've brought in to be the chief. And so, again, he has this kind of like, look, I have never gone through any of this before. So is someone getting, killed on the beach, is that a normal thing here? Is that not a normal? So we're setting it all up, and they do it without a lot of really dumpy, bad expo dialogue. It's just very natural. The conversation that they have when they're getting up from bed, like you said, very normal and believable, that she'd be kind of teasing him about, no, you got to say, and all that. So yeah, I love that scene. It's a little bit, you just had this crazy shock death sequence with Chrissy, and then it goes right to this scene, and it's kind of fun and playful, and I really like that. Yeah,
really great. And while he's there, he gets the phone call. So the phone call is he's got to go out to because there's a girl. The first call is in the beginning. It's a little more, it's not the terrible thing we think it is. It's just that she's missing. So the first thing is the report from the kid that was running after her, and he's like, I called in that she's missing. I don't know what happened to her, and all they have left is that as she was running to the beach, she threw her clothes and she never came back for him. So they clearly know that she's missing. So,
And Brody is like collecting her outfit as they're like retracing the route.
The image of Brody standing there holding her like hippie purse is just hilarious to me.
Yes.
That's a great image. Yes. But so it's just Brody. He called in his deputy, who's this guy Hendricks. Hendricks is great. He's got some great comic relief moments in this. And he's in this, and he's also in part 2 as well. Great actor. And so, they're walking along the beach kind of, and he's picking up the clothes as they go. They're moving more towards where everything, and I'm using air quotes, happened. And the kid is letting him know a little bit about, we just met last night and we were, we hit it off, and I drank a little too much. I fell asleep, yada, yada. But then, Brody asks a couple other questions, which helps sort of place, how a lot of the teenagers are there. They're not all like from there. And he makes it clear his family is from the island, but they don't live there anymore. They moved away and they're back for the summer. So he
lives in Greenwich.
Yeah, he's from
now.
Connecticut, which is that's a very like, a lot of New Yorkers who have places in the Hamptons or something. It's a similar thing where you've got families that they do the summer on Martha's Vineyard, or they grew up there and then they come back, or they grew up in the area, they're the Cape, and then they summer in Martha's Vineyard or whatever. So it's a very common thing. So him having this conversation with the kid is very, again, another thing that places this really firmly in the Martha's Vineyard area. It's very ubiquitous. But my point I wanted to include was I love like everything sort of like, and as they're talking about that stuff, it's very sort of casual. It's very like run-of-mill, work-a-day conversation about, oh, your family and you come here and whatever. And then out of nowhere, you get the whistle from Hendrix. And it's so well done because his whole reaction is so fantastic. And it's another moment of not showing what he sees. It's just his reaction, which you are taking. So he blows in the whistle, and they're like, oh, they start moving towards where he is. Brody does the thing where he holds the kid, like, stay back, I'm going to go. And when he does that, Hendrix falls to the sand because of what he's looking at. And he still has the whistle in his mouth, which is such a great moment because he's like blowing. And then when he falls, it's sort of like a like blow through the whistle, like unexpected, but it's also sort of like it's like a sad noise. It's like a like a scared and sad noise the way it comes out of his whistle, and he's just like he cannot even really look at what's going on over there because it's something he's never seen before, and we have to sort of decide in our heads, holy crap, what is so bad that a cop wouldn't be able to look at it, and we find out the information later that there's never been a violent crime on the island in like X amount of years and whatever. But there's been accidents. Just because there's no crime doesn't mean like, there's been boating accidents. There's been other things, someone's had a car accident or someone fell into whatever. So for a cop to have that reaction, I think it holds a lot of weight there, and I just want to include that. That's in the scene of finding Chrissy's remains. It's so impactful. I can hear that whistle in my head, like when it dies out and he falls down. I can like hear it in my head for the rest of my life. It's such a thing that like hit me emotionally. Yeah.
Well, it just gives you this idea that this is not normal.
Right.
That like you said, this guy's a cop. He's seen, people, like you said, there have to have been car accidents. There have to have been, boating accidents and things, right? This is not a boating accident, all that, right? So clearly you would assume that he has encountered mangled bodies or body parts before. Yeah. Maybe not a lot, but at least once or twice he's come across someone that's gotten run over or whatever, and it's disgusting and icky. But his reaction is certainly, oh my God, this is worse than anything I've ever seen before in my life. And what I always loved about this scene, and you do see her like hand and part of her like forearm in like the weeds, the seaweed and stuff that have washed up onto the shore. And what I love about it is that they originally had like a prosthetic, like a fake arm that they were going to use, kind of like the one that Hooper picks up in the morgue in that scene that's coming up, right, when he kind of looks at it. And apparently when it was outdoors in the sun, Spielberg felt it just looked fake. Yeah. That just I'm just not liking it. So they went and they found a woman and they paid her, and she literally is buried in the sand and has her arm sticking up. And
That's such a fantastic piece of trivia. I'm not sure I knew that before us recording this. I don't think I knew that.
I had never knew that until this year, when a lot of stuff started coming out about the movie again because of the 50th anniversary. And literally when I first read it, I'm like, that can't be right. And because I'm like, it's on the internet, it can't be right. But then I did a little research, and I found it on multiple sites, multiple people saying that was what happened. And I was just like, damn, Spielberg, you go, man. So yeah. So when you see that arm in that scene, that there is a whole person attached to it, and she's alive, and she just was paid to like stick her arm up there, and that way Spielberg got the realism that he was going for, that the effect arm, the fake arm that they had obviously made in the props department, he felt just wasn't cutting it. And again, I love it.
It's fantastic. The quick fallout from that scene is obviously, Brody immediately, signs. We gotta post signs. We gotta close down the beach.
Let Molly do the printing.
What's wrong with my printing? Let Molly do the printing.
I love that line. He's like, what's wrong with my printing? Yeah.
He's so offended.
Hendrix is fun.
I know, he is fun. And it's so like, you're in the middle of like an emergency situation where you got to shut down the beaches, and he's like, what's wrong with my printing? Like a little baby. It's great.
Well, and even before that, he's like, hey, where do we keep the beaches closed sign? And Hendrix is like, we never had any.
Yeah. So that's an interesting thing, that you get all this information. They've never had to close the beaches before. This has never happened before. And Brody's in the middle at the station. He's typing up his first report. He writes shark attack on his first report.
Cause of death.
Right. And then he gets the call that there's some Boy Scouts that are doing their swim something, and he's like, oh shit. And they're like, well, they can't get a call out to there because they're already out on the water doing their swim certification or whatever. So he goes to head out there. And there's this great scene where he's on his way over there, and he's on the, he's going to take like the little car ferry. And he just asks the guy with the car ferry, can you just drive me over to there? I got to talk to I got to get these kids out of the water. But before they leave, the mayor's car pulls up, and we get this great scene where we first get the first interaction between Brody and the mayor, and then his group of cronies. I guess they're probably all on like the city council of some kind, or they're local aldermen or selectmen or something like that. And and also the coroner's there, and they immediately are like, we can't close the beaches, we can't do this, what are you doing? And he's like, yeah, but it's I'm just doing what he's not trying to be political. He's like, I'm just going off of what I was told.
Right.
It could be, and then immediately they start leading the coroner into a different position. And it's great to watch because, the slimy politics on display. Like, it's happened before, Martin, there could be a woman that, she tires and she gets hit by a propeller and whatever. And he's immediately like, looks at the coroner, is like, that is not what you said over the phone. And he's like, you'll back that up? And he's like, it could happen. Yes, sure.
Oh, yeah. Wait. Well, the coroner's like, well, I was wrong. Is his response, know. And of course, and Brody's like, hey man, I'm not being out of line here. Like you said, I'm just responding to what I was told.
Yeah, like
that the coroner said this was a shark attack, so I'm reacting the way you do to a shark attack, and yeah. I always find it interesting that the Carl Gottlieb character, who is like clearly the guy who like runs the local paper,
yes,
that he has zero journalistic interest in making this a story.
Yeah,
and he's like 100%. We're gonna hush this up. We're gonna keep it quiet because it's good. It's bad for business if this gets out.
Yeah,
and I'm just sort of like, really? And you run the paper? I mean, you have no desire to like publish this and get some headlines. You know what I mean? It's just nope, not at all. Nope. We're just shh. Nothing happened here.
Nothing
to
happened.
see.
Nothing to see here. Thank you very much.
Right. Oh yeah. But as you find out, that dude's on the town council.
Yep.
So he understands the slimy, the economic reality of, hey man, if our beaches are closed, and we should point out, like, this is like July 3rd that this happens, right? So the 4th of July, the 50th anniversary regatta festival is the next day.
Yep.
Which is like, I guess, like the beginning of the season there.
Mm-hmm.
Where they really open it up to the tourists and everything. And they're, and the mayor even says that at one point, going, look, if they can't come here, the tourists will go to Cape Cod and Martha's Vineyard and all these other places up and down the East Coast right there. They'll swim somewhere else.
Yep.
And all that money is going to go somewhere else. Yep. And so we don't care that it was a shark. We're open,
Yeah. Yeah, he's all about let's open the beaches for sure.
Yeah. And I wrote down the one line where the mayor, Larry Vaughn, who, by the way, he is a real estate guy, so he sells property, and yet he's the mayor too, so kind of serving his own interests there by keeping everything smooth, right? So that people will continue to rent stuff and buy stuff and whatnot.
No conflict of interest there at all.
No.
Whatsoever.
And so he kind of pulls Martin aside and he kind of points out, hey, this is your first summer here, so you don't quite know how things are working and how they're supposed to work, but this is our money making season. This is where all of the people on this island make all the money they're going to make for the year that they're going to need to survive once it gets cold and it's not tourist season. And he says, look, if you yell barracuda, people go, what? Huh? What? I don't get it. He goes, but if you yell shark, we got a panic on our hands on the 4th of July. And just like laying it out to like, look, I understand your concerns and you do the stuff you need to do to make sure it's safe for everyone, but we're not changing.
Yeah, absolutely. You do what you got to do, but we're and it's also it's kind of condescending too, where it's just like you don't understand, Mm-hmm. And to Brody's credit, like he was saying, he wasn't doing anything to be harmful, and he was he was going off of the information he had, he was just,
right.
And if they're going to change the information, then whatever, that's fine. So they do change the information, and they keep the beaches open, and the very next day they're all at the beach for the final swimming moments of poor Alex Kintner. Who was sacrificed to the 4th of July gods, according to, Mayor Vaughn. And so, I mean, it's so fantastic. That whole scene, just even when you know it's coming, I think it's even better. Like, there's a certain, when you don't know, the very first time you watch it and you don't know, there's so much tension when, Alex jumps out on the water and he's on the little raft and whatever. And it's so tense because you're like just waiting for something bad to happen, which of course happens. Mm-hmm. But all of the other tense moments too, Brody's sitting there and he's just trying to watch the water. He figures, I'm sure in his head, that's the caveat. Yes, we'll keep them open. I still feel a little uncomfortable about the whole thing. I'm not sure it really is a beach accident, propeller accident, like he's saying. So to cover my ass, I'm just going to be at the beach and I'll keep an eye on everything. Because if I'm there, I can help control the situation. He's got to have that going on in his head, right?
Oh, yeah.
So every little movement and, like someone like yelling or screaming, or the kids, or Harry coming up where he's got his swim cap on, like every little thing that looks like, oh my god, is that a shark? Okay. Oh my god, is that a shark? Oh, okay.
Well,
oh my god,
like the the girl screams, and then he looks and he gets all excited, and then you see like she's like on the shoulders of her boyfriend, and he kind of stands up, and so you get all of these like almost like jump scares, like false alarms.
Yes.
Where it's like and it's sort of like, you can see that Spielberg is sort of like setting us up to be like, no, not this time. No, not this time. And of course, sprinkling throughout that, you have kind of the everyday mundaneness. People are coming up to Brody and being like, hey, can you help me with this like zoning issue and blah, 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 and he's like trying to like look past them at the water. And of course, all these things are happening and everything. And of course, running through this is this dude with his dog, Pippet. And he's got like the stick or the bait, and he's whipping it out into the water, and the dog goes racing out into the water and gets the stick and comes back in, and all of these things are happening, and they're all disconnected, yet they're all connected.
Yeah.
And then it's bad when Alex is like, Mom, I want to go swimming. And she's like, let me see your hands. And he shows them, and she's like, Alex Kittner, you're turning pruny, and she goes, 5 more minutes. And you just know that is going to haunt that woman for the rest of her life, that she let him go back in the damn water.
Yep.
At that point, when she knew that, you've been in the water long enough, now's the time to come up to whatever. But she doesn't. So he goes splashing out into the water on his raft. And then I think the very next thing, there's the dude on the beach, and the bait, the stick, is washed up by itself. And he's like, Pippet, Pippet.
Yeah, where are you?
and my comment was, I didn't really know Pippet as a dog. I mostly remember it as an hors d'oeuvre.
Yeah, you were the amuse-bouche to Alex Kittner.
To the main dish of Alex Kittner,
course,
yes. Yeah. And I know you have thoughts on Alex, on the death of Alex Kittner.
Yeah.
I do too. This is always been like the most brutal scene for me, because I kind of was Alex Kittner. I was the same age.
That's true, yeah.
You know what I mean? So I could very much identify with oh, Mons, let me go back in for 5 more, what I mean? Because like I said, we had a summer place where you could go swimming every day.
Yep. And
we would go up there and do that. So I remember having conversations with my parents about like, can I go back in? Or like, they'd tell you this lie of once you ate lunch, you had to wait a half hour before you could go swimming.
Yeah.
Really? What? Are you insane? Nowadays it's hilarious how crazy that is. But when I was a kid, that was like gospel. We're like, yep.
Yeah, like cramps. You could have cramps and then you drown.
That's right.
Yep.
And so anyway, I mean, I remember all of that. And so, yeah, that really affected me personally. And just the way that they film it. And the shot of like the shark, like rolling over.
Amazing.
After it bites the raft, that still, it gets me every time.
Yeah.
It gets me every time. But go ahead, please tell me what your thoughts are on this, because I know that you made specific notes about this. So.
I did. What's interesting too, and I didn't write it in my notes, but you made a point of talking about like the death with like where he's grabbed and then the rollover, and you only see it for like a half second, and then you get everybody on the beach standing up. Hey, what was that? Did you see
that? Oh, yeah.
Which is great. Such a great way to film it. But what's interesting is, like you said, there's lots of trivia that's been coming out because of celebrating the 50th anniversary. That scene was filmed gorier, bloodier, gorier, and you saw the sharks, like there's the rollover, but it was originally going to be like almost like the Quint at the end. It's mouth open, grabs Alex Kittner and goes underneath, and it was much bloodier. As it is, you just get like sort of like a fountain of water sort of splurges up, and it's red, and then it goes away from it. And yes, you see it, and don't get me wrong, it's gross, but it's the amount. It was gonna be like a bloodbath, and Spielberg pulled it back. And I'm glad he did, because I feel like the way it's filmed, the way the version we have now, like you were saying, it's less about the blood. It's the first, that's our first glimpse of the shark, is the rollover. And you still don't really have quite an idea, because if you're not paying attention, you have exactly the same reaction as the people that are on the beach, which is, did you see what I just saw? Whatever. Because it's quick and it's done. And it's so brilliantly filmed. It's so wonderfully done. And it's the opposite of Chrissy. Chrissy, we got the and the screaming and the let go and the like absolute screaming. None of that. Not a peep out of Kintner.
When he's under the water, you hear him go like that. But that's it.
And it's not something that the regular person would have heard. Like if Ding Dong wasn't, passed out on the beach, and if they hadn't run so far from the people that were around the fire, someone would probably have heard
her screaming.
Right.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah.
But in this instance, any noise that Alex made was underwater because he was grabbed and pulled underwater so quickly, which made it different from what we saw with Chrissy. But it's done so fast. And to me, right after the people stand up and do did you see what I saw? And you see the kids go, is that blood? Is that blood in the water? And then, without question, is one of the best shots in a Spielberg movie ever done, which is the push-in shot, which goes right to Brody's face, is so amazing. And it's so well done. And it's copied. It's been done. He's used it in other movies. It's so, so well done because the camera is like his nervous system. Does that make sense? Like you are him going, and that gasp of air is the camera pushing in onto him. And it makes that moment so much more physical. His reaction to what's happening, physical. What he's thinking and feeling in that camera shot and how it pushes into him. The way that it's again, we keep saying that the things that Spielberg did are classics, that he created like genres out of this, that he created things that were copied for years, and we're gonna say it like 30 more times. We've already done it 20. Yeah. And this is definitely one of them. This is such a beautifully done shot. It's one of my favorite shots in the whole movie. And I love it. And the fact that it's connected to one of the gorier scenes in the movie, we really don't get anything quite as bloody until Quint's death, I would say.
Maybe the guy that gets his leg bitten off.
Right, that's
in the pond. That's kind of gory, but you're right. I mean, the fact that we see the shark swim underneath all the other people swimming and kind of zero in on the raft.
It's like he picked Alex.
Yeah. That is it's just, it's different. And it's much more, I think, scary that it's like, hey, you know what? The shark could have killed any of those people.
Right.
And just picked him. And the shot that you again, like you said, it's been copied and ripped off 1,000 times since then by various other filmmakers. It's something that he actually took from Hitchcock,
right?
From Psycho, and what happens is the camera dollies in, so the camera is pushing, literally is being moved closer to Roy Scheider,
right?
And as it's pushing in physically, the cameraman is pulling back with the lens, so the lens is going backwards while the camera's going forwards, and it's this like weird forced perspective changes.
Right.
And like you said, it gives us we're like looking into Brody's mind at that moment.
Yes.
And it's like this sort of realization, because like you said, everyone just saw what happened.
Yeah.
And everyone is kind of like trying to process it, like, wait, what was that?
Yeah.
You know, oh my God. You know, because again, never seen anything like that before. And what did you know, like you said, the one guy's like, did you see that? And then we get the blood and everything starts, you know, to froth up from under the water, and then it cuts to Brody, and he has that fork moment.
Exactly.
And with that technique, we all know exactly what it's like. Damn it. You know, this, you know, like basically, you know, hell's come to breakfast now because I didn't do what I knew I should have done.
Right. And it's immediate. It's fear and guilt like wrapped together all in one, and you can see the moment that it moves from like the emotion to the other, because it's fear, oh my God, what did we just see, to I know what we just saw, oh my God, I'm responsible for this.
Yeah, and you're right. There are like production pictures that have surfaced. Again, a lot of stuff came out this year and a little bit last year in preparation of the 50th anniversary. But there is a picture, and I remember when I first saw it, like back in like, I don't know, it was like beginning of this year, maybe the end of last year, and I saved it into my camera roll because I was like, oh my God. And it's they have a raft and they have a dummy of Alex Kittner, so it's not the actual actor. It's just something they've rigged up, and the shark is like, it's like literally about a quarter of the way out of the water.
Yeah.
And you're right, it was going to be very bloody, and we're going to see body parts, and I think part of it is Spielberg decided he didn't want to go that route. I think also the shark was still not really working.
Right.
And
that was another thing.
A lot of the decisions that Spielberg, you know, made that were like, oh my God, that's genius. A lot of it was like, they didn't have a choice because the damn shark didn't work right.
Yeah, the practicality of it was the number one reason, and it just turned out like, hey, we're going to cut this corner because we have to, and then it becomes genius after the fact.
After the fact, yes, you're right. But anyway, there's this photograph of the shark sticking out of the water. You know, like its head and its mouth is wide open, and there's the raft and the dummy of the boy on there, and it's terrifying. I'm like, oh my God! You know, if they would have put that in the movie, you'd be like, ah! I mean, a totally different kind of scare, because, like you said, when those fins roll over, you're like, you kind of see it, but you don't.
Right.
And so again, your imagination is just churning over time. Like, oh my God, how big is, like you said, we all know it's a shark, right? The poster gives it away. It's not like we don't know what's doing it, but we don't know what it looks like.
Right.
And we don't know how big is it. And all of these things, like practical things that your imagination is like, oh my God, this thing is 700 feet long, you know, and it's like, and all of that. And it's just infinitely more scary than if we'd seen the actual, you know, mechanical shark jump up and bite it. As bloody and gory and terrifying as that would be, what the way that he did it is infinitely more scary, particularly for, you know, 10-year-old Steve. At that point, Steve is not going in any kind of water ever again, right? And it's like, nope, I'm sorry, bathing is now considering optional for me. Okay,
I can't go in the shower. What are you, crazy?
I know, I can't. I can't even brush my teeth anymore. What are you, nuts? I mean, they could come out of the faucet. I mean, at that point, I was like, I don't know if I like this movie.
But eventually it grew on you, right?
Oh God, it really did. It really did. But yeah, I mean, that. And then the great shot of everyone gets out of the water and they're all like staring, and of course people are trying to find each other, and then Mrs. Kittner is looking for her son, and he's not there, and then the shot of like the chewed up, deflated raft washing up in the red surf. I mean, it's brilliant. It's really amazingly well done.
I want to share something sort of small world about that image, which is it's related to the movie, but it's more related to me and like my daily work life, whatever. So It's not like a big thing to sort of like state it, but I work for a company that does graphics for a local, very, very, very well known across the U.S. pinball company. We do a lot of the graphics that are, just the two-dimensional, like the decals that go on the outside of the machine and on the inside, and not for all of them, but for a decent amount. And we did do the decals, and when we got this job, I cannot even tell you how exciting it was for me that we helped do some of the graphics. And we don't create the graphics, don't get me wrong. We literally, they create all the they do all the expertise there at Stern Pinball, and then we just print it on our machines.
You produce them.
Yeah, we produce it. So they created these beautiful things. Now, me, with my crazy obsession / love for the movie Jaws, there are some that we've helped work on that I'm like, ooh, that's super cool. Ooh, that's super cool. This is the one that I was like, I have to see what every image is. I have to see what it... And when I tell you that they designed one of the decals, and I can't remember, I don't think it's one of the ones... I think it's one of the ones that goes on the inside of the machine. So up against the wall on the inside of the machine, there's like a small sort of like long triangular decal. And they did one for one of the versions, because there's usually a couple of different versions of the game that's produced. They did one where like on the one side it shows like the dock, like the Amity Harbor sort of dock, and there's a little bit of dock stuff there or whatever. But they did one where on one end is, how there's, I think it's in the later scene for the 4th of July where the woman is standing there holding the child and is screaming as people are coming out of the water.
Splashing
It's a really iconic like image from the movie. They took that and they married it with, in the background of the decal is floating on the water is the chewed up yellow raft with blood.
Wow.
And that attention to detail made me so fucking happy as a fan. When I saw that, I was like, yep. I mean, and don't get me wrong, these guys, like the art department and the people that create these images for Stern, they fucking know what they're doing. They always do a beautiful job. It's one of those things that, like, a lot of the stuff we print for my job, there's a lot of advertising and things like that. And those are cool. It's cool to be involved with some of those things. But the pinball machines are so cool, and to see, like, to have been able to see those, I mean, the game's been out for like almost like 8 to 10 months at this point, but to have been able to see it when it was in like the production stage and to know that these images were going to come out was just fantastic. And I've played the game. If you guys haven't had a chance, if you're a big fan of Jaws and you like pinball machines, find the Stern Pinball version of the Jaws game. It literally has a chum bucket in the middle of the game that, like, it's fucking incredible. It's so well done. It's really well done. But since we're on the topic of Alex Kintner and that image of the float, I think that's just like, that was one of those like nod to the fans thing where someone would see that, like crazy me, and go, that's fucking amazing that they included that image because it's so iconic. It's like, it's just, if you're a big fan of that movie, just the image of the, there's no noise, there's no music, there's no sound, and it's just you get a little bit of the, like, the ripple of the wave, there's a little bit of lapping of water sound, that's it, and it's just that, like, dead flotation device with the blood around it. And it's just such an iconic image. It's really, really cool. And to see it represented was just super cool. Love it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so the death of Alex Kintner. So the next thing that of consequence that I included, like, sort of in the timeline is, I think that there's a shift that happens in the movie where we kick it into a different gear. Mm-hmm. As soon as we get the arrival of Matt Hooper. So we get that, and then the next scene, the next scene is obviously, we're seeing the fallout of Mrs. Kintner has put up a reward to find her son because he's missing. He's assumed dead, but we don't know. and she's put out a reward for someone to catch the shark. And it's like a $3,000 reward.
Is
and she's
that
posted it-
$3,000 in cash or check?
I don't think that's funny. I don't think that's very funny at all. I love her. I love her. And so the fallout of that is that she's put this ad out there, and every Tom, Dick, and Harry who's got a boat ends up trying to leave and go get this shark. And that coincides with the arrival of Matt Hooper, who's they said that in a town meeting when they said that, yes, we're going to close the beaches. And then that's when Mayor Vaughn was like, for 24 hours. He's like, I didn't agree to that.
24 hours is like 3 weeks.
And when in that same scene, that's when Brody is like, we're going to bring in someone from the local Oceanographic Institute to, assess, stuff, whatever. And so you just get that tiny tidbit, and that's that sort of meeting with the I think that was probably more like a Chamber of Commerce meeting, because it was all the people who were business owners.
Mm-hmm.
And so we get this little tidbit about the Oceanographic Institute, and then we get the arrival of Matt Hooper, and he makes a really great comment when he's like, you're gonna be the last sane person left after tomorrow or whatever, just because of there's everything's going crazy on the island. I think he makes that comment later when they're at dinner, but he's brought this sort of level of expertise, I guess you could say. They're not sure what they're doing up until this moment. Brody says one thing, the coroner says another. The coroner is clearly being influenced by the mayor. Brody's uncomfortable but goes with it. Then clearly that bites them in the ass. Then they have to close the beaches down anyway. The mayor says 24 hours. He's like, I didn't agree to that. So there's a lot of confusion going on. There's no sort of direct path. And then when Hooper shows up, and he's like, well, the first thing I should do is I should see the remains. And we get the scene with Hooper, and like the best part about that scene, there's so many great parts about that scene, but when his reaction, where he has like no affect or whatever, when it's literally like as small as like a dish drainer tub put in front of him, it's like 2 feet square, the tub, and that's it that they have of her remains.
That's it.
Is what fits in there. And when he pulls it back and is like, and takes a deeper, and again, they don't show it to you. I mean, he lifts her arm out, and we do get some of that. And yes, it's gross. But the fact that his first reaction is to something, again, we don't see, we don't know what it looks like. He's just describing it. And oh my God, isn't it disgusting? There are no internal organs remaining. And you're like, oh my God, what does it even look like? It's been torn off, the body's been torn off mid-thorax, and he's talking all about the damage that's been made to the body.
Massive tissue loss.
Yeah, just it's so major squalus.
Oh yeah,
as he says, but the moment when he is angry at them, and he's angry at the coroner too, and the coroner just doesn't say a word.
Right.
He's just like uncomfortable the whole time. And when he's like, this was not a boating accident, and when he says that, it's the thing that propels the rest of the story. There's pre-Matt Hooper when we're like, it looks like a shark. Well, it could have been a boating accident. Then it's like, I saw it happen on the beach, and you're like, yeah, but could it have been, like they don't show like the reaction of people after the Kintner thing. It's just like, word of mouth. It's a shark. It's some kind of shark, maybe, or some kind of predator. And so they're,
it's
they're
a
saying
tiger.
Shark. Yeah, it's a what? And so
no, I mean like a real tiger. It's like swimming in the Atlantic. You never know, right? I mean,
yeah. And so in the time that he's inside, And he makes that statement finally. Someone finally says out loud, this was not a boating accident. And the coroner has no leg to stand on. He doesn't say a word, and Hooper is like, it wasn't this, it wasn't that, it wasn't a boating accident, it wasn't a propeller, it was a shark.
It wasn't a coral reef, it wasn't, it was.
Exactly. So it's really like a demarcation in the film where it's like, Hooper said he's the expert on sharks. He comes in, he sees it, he says this was definitely a shark attack, and then everything moves forward from there, from that moment. And it's fantastic because then right after that, you got the scene where they're like, "Oh my God, we caught the fish." They show a shark, and I love watching this scene over and over again. I love watching all these scenes over and over again. But when you watch all of the people that are so happy about finding the tiger shark and the tiger shark scene, and they're stringing it up and everybody's excited and hold up the sign, and Hendrix holds up the sign like a dork, and they're all doing their thing, and they're like, Brody, get down in front, and they're like, little man, little guy, little feller, could you get out of the way of the shot? And they're all doing their thing, and Hooper's over there with his tape measure.
Yeah.
He's doing the tape measure with the mouth and the da-da-da-da-da. And it's very small, but there's so much going on. And then you get him saying, the bite radius doesn't match. Could it be the shark? It's possible, and he states his case, it's rare for it to be here.
It's a man-eater. It's extremely rare for these waters, but the fact remains that the bite radius on this animal is different than those of the first victim. And the mayor ain't having none of it.
And he's like, listen, gentlemen, this is neither the time nor the place to perform some half-ass autopsy.
Yeah, because that's what Hooper suggests.
Like,
he's like, look, you know what we do is we cut open the shark because the digestive system is very slow, and whatever he's eaten in the last 24 hours is bound to still be in there, And he's like, and that'll confirm it, right, one way or the other. And the mayor's like, there's no way that I'm gonna let you cut open this shark and let that little Kittner kid spill out onto the dock.
And as if their ears were burning when they said the Kittner kid, Mrs. Kittner shows up on the dock.
Oh my God, that's
and she has her great moment where she slaps Chief Brody, and it quiets because everybody's jubilant on the dock, because we caught the shark. And there's all this hubbub, and when she slaps Brody, everything quiets down, and she says, I've just found out about the other girl, and you knew that someone else was injured, and you kept the beaches open. And she's like, my boy's dead, and it's because of you, and da-da-da, and she leaves, and she just leaves them standing there, and the mayor's like, she's wrong, and he's like, no, she's not.
No, she's not.
And he just leaves, and it's this really, really, it's a sad moment, but it's kind of true, and of course in hindsight, he didn't know that he didn't know anything about shark attacks. He didn't know that everything that Alex Kintner was doing is what attracts sharks. That he was like creating like a shark fest environment, but Brody didn't know enough. He didn't know anything, even though he knew about Chrissy, and he was uncomfortable because it was new and he didn't know enough about the town, and they kind of strong-armed him. It's more, to my feeling, it's more the city council and the mayor's fault about Alex Kintner than it is about Brody, because he did want to close the beaches.
Oh, he did.
They
outvoted him. They overruled him. Basically said you don't have the authority to do that. And he's like, whose authority do I need? When he's talking to the chief of police, And, the whole idea that she finds out that someone else had died, and that despite that, what does she say? Like, you let people go swimming anyway. Just the
Ugh.
way that she says that, right? And then she goes, you knew all these things, and now my boy is dead. And
Ugh.
he's, Brody is just like, just letting her, this, I owe you this, you do what you got to do,
Yeah.
for what you've suffered. And then when she hits him,
Ugh.
just
Yeah.
slaps him, and like, even like Hooper's like, oh my God, and I
Yeah.
should point out that like all of the people that are there looking at the tiger shark, they are all silent and watching this whole
Oh
thing.
God. Yeah.
You know what
Oh
I
yeah.
mean? So this is captivating everyone, and it's like a public shaming where she is calling out the chief, going like, look, you knew someone else had been killed by a shark like a week earlier, and you
Yeah.
still let everyone go to the beaches. This is on you. And that's when
Yeah.
the mayor tries to be like, Martin, she's wrong. It's not on
Yeah.
you. It's on us. It's on me. It's what he's saying, right? Without saying. But yeah, Brody's like, no, she's not wrong. It's my fault. I should have pushed harder. I knew when that first girl was killed that we needed to do something more than what we did, and
Right.
I didn't do it. Yeah, so it's amazing. The whole regatta scene is amazing. So many funny characters,
Oh God.
right?
Yeah.
When Hooper's like, gentlemen, the sheriff has just asked me to not put so many people in that boat, and they're like, yeah, and he's like, okay, he's like, well, can you guys recommend a good restaurant? And they're like, yeah, take a couple feet forward into the water, and
Yeah.
he's just
Yeah.
like,
He's facing the water, and they're like, walk straight a couple miles, and they're like, ha 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 ha,
and he's
and he
just like,
walks
they're
away.
all gonna die. And
It's great.
he runs into Ben Gardner, and he's like, hello, and then Ben Gardner goes, hello back.
Hello there, little fella.
Oh yeah, yeah, and then like the one guy's got like the dynamite, and
Yeah.
Brody's like, no, you're not taking that out in the boat. He's like, yeah, I am. He's like, no, and I mean, there's so many fun craziness, and it's all of these people, like we pointed out, Hendrix is mentioning that all the license plates are from out of town, right?
Yeah.
Because Mrs. Kittner has like placed ads in all the
Everywhere.
local newspapers basically saying she'll pay $3,000 to whoever kills the shark that killed her son. And so, and Brody's like, this is going to turn into a contest. And it's like, I hate to break it to you, Chief. It already is a contest,
Yeah.
right?
No kidding.
And
Yeah.
and again, as amazing as the energy shift is when Hooper shows up, right before Hooper shows up, Quint shows up.
Yes.
Right, so we get the three kind of main protagonists of the movie, and we were introduced to Quint at that meeting, right, where
Yeah.
all the towns, like you said, it's kind of like a chamber of commerce kind of thing, because everybody there owns a business of some kind, and all of them
Yes.
are like just getting ready to open up for the 4th of July for their big money making season. And
Yeah.
they're obviously very concerned because the kid's dead. And also they're concerned because they're afraid they're going to close the beaches and they're going to lose all their money. And then out of all of the commotion, Quint drags his fingernails across the chalkboard.
Such a great scene.
Right. And he, has that great scene where he's like, y'all know me. Know what I do for a living. and
Yeah.
and he basically presents the idea of, you people have to decide what you're going to do, because you have to get rid of this thing now and save
Right.
your summer, save your livelihood. And he's like, I'll find the shark for 3, but I'll kill it for 10. And he's like, you guys got to decide. Ante up now, pay me, and you guys can survive this, or you're going to be on welfare come the wintertime.
Yeah.
And he's
Yeah.
like, let me know, basically. And then he gets up and he's like, Mr. Mayor, Chief. And then he walks out. And again, it's a wonderful introduction, because you clearly get the sense that, yeah, this guy, he's like the salt of the earth fisherman
Yeah.
guy. you know.
Yeah, he's the real deal.
Yeah, you know, and the fact that he came in there and basically laid out his terms of like, if you can do the $3,000 and you're going to get all these half-assed wannabes that are probably going to hurt themselves more than kill the shark. Go ahead.
Yeah.
You go right ahead and let that circus unfold. He said, when you get serious and want to really get it, you'll come to me because you guys all know I'm the guy that can do it.
Right.
And nobody calls him on it. They're all just like, okay, we'll take it under advisement, Mr. Quint. You know what I mean? Like, thanks. Thanks for coming in.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
And what's great about it is the stuff that he says basically comes true in the next scene.
Oh, right.
So he says, he's like, I'll work by myself. He's like, there's too many captains on this island.
Yep.
And then he's like, I'll get it done. This will be, it's going to be a mess if I don't work on this. It'll be a mess.
It'll be a mess.
So the very next scene is a mess.
Oh, it is.
Of everybody in the harbor. And there are too many captains, which is exactly what he said. And, you get all these wackadoos that are all, the dude with the dynamite and the guys that have like 7 people in the craft before they go out. And then in the background, you have Quint on his boat, the Orca, driving past, and he's watching the whole thing just like, hey,
he's laughing.
Giggling.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he knows, like, I said it would happen, and there it is. Yeah. It all happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
especially I love the whole when he's like, there's too many captains on this island. And then in the very next scene, the people are like trying to be captains.
Too many captains. Yep. And then I love when he goes, 10,000. You get the head, the tail, the whole damn thing. It's just the way that he says it. And But it's just now we've established these are the 3 main guys for the rest of the movie, and the movie really is moving away from the island and out into the water at this point. Although there's still the 4th of July sequence itself, which is funny and terrifying at the same time. Yeah. And before we get into that, I did want to go back and just say one thing, and that is after the Kittner death, there's a scene of the Brodies are back in their house. It's like that night. And Martin is at the dinner table, and he's like, kind of like, you can tell like the wheels are turning, and he's just like reliving every second that has just happened to him and to the beach and everything. And his son Sean is sitting at the table, and so Martin, like, he puts his hands together, like interlocks his fingers, and you see Sean, and then Sean is mimicking him. And, whatever he does, when he starts rubbing his temples, Sean starts rubbing his temples and so on. And after a second or two, Brody catches on to it. And then they do this kind of little game where he interlocks his fingers, and then he raises them back up. And then he's like kind of messing with his son, and his son is starting to giggle as he's trying to keep doing it. And it's a really tender little moment. And what I love is that his wife is kind of like off a little bit, like in the kitchen, and she's just watching the two of them have this little moment. And again, it's silly, but it's a quiet moment after a really loud moment. And it kind of helps even you out. And Brody, at one point after they kind of finish their little game, he's like, hey, give me a hug. And the kid's like, why? And he's like, because I really need one. And it's just a great line.
He says, give us a kiss.
Give us a kiss, yeah. And he's
give us a kiss.
He's like,
and
why? He's like, because I really need one. Yeah, it's wonderful. It's really cool. So. And
it's great because there's also, so he's at the table, and then Hooper does show up. It's the beginning of the scene where Hooper shows up at the dinner table, and when Hooper shows up and he's got the wine and they sit down. And
how's your day?
It's one of the best lines of the movie. To have that moment where they just and if you think about it, you watch the movie enough, they've only had 15-20 minutes together.
Yeah, right.
They don't know each other super well, but there's like a connection that happened right away, and they trust each other, and they both kind of have an idea, and especially Hooper. He saw what Brody went through on the docks when she was like, it's your fault. And he's like, and the mayor's like, it's not your fault, and he's like, yeah, it is, and whatever. So he saw all of that play out, and so the whole like the whole line, "How was your day?"
How's your day?
Is just incredible.
Well,
it's really incredible.
And we should point out that like Brody is like half in the bag.
Already.
He's been drinking a lot after the mom slapped him and everything. Yeah, that was his way of dealing with it. Yeah. And Hooper's like basically says that he's leaving. He's going to go on the Aurora, right? This 18-month like trip, on this oceanographic vessel, studying with all these other crazy shark people. And so he's like, once I leave tomorrow, you're going to be the only voice of reason left around here, and
right.
And of course Brody's like brings up some like weird little shark facts that he's learned since all this started. And he's like, is it true that like most people get attacked by sharks in like less than like 10 feet of water? And he's like, yep. And within sight of the shore, right on he's like, yep. And then, they bring up the idea of territoriality, that the shark will continue to stay in an area where the feeding's good and all that. And I mean, it's kind of it's sort of like setting up this idea that if they don't deal with the problem, it's not going to go away. And so they open up the wine, and of course, again, a great little funny moment because Brody just immediately starts pouring it, and of course Hooper's like, you might want to let that breathe. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Good.
You want to let it breathe a little.
No, good. Yeah, and so they do that, and then what does Brody say? Like, what do you say when we finish this wine, we head down to the dock and cut open that shark? And the wife is like, can you do that? And great line, right? I'll let you say it because he just looks at her.
It's the best line of the movie. I can do anything I want. I'm the chief of police.
But
and it's so well done. And we've been talking about it being mimicked in so many things. And I literally just I'm doing a rewatch of Stranger Things, and there's a scene in season 3 where Chief Hopper, David Harbour's character, is he gets a little drunk at the local Italian
I think it's
restaurant.
more than a little, but yes.
Yeah, and he gets because he got stood up by Winona Ryder's character Joyce, and he's so pissed off, and he like drops a bunch of money on the table, and he grabs the bottle, and he's about to leave, and they're like, "Sir, you can't leave with the bottle of wine. You can't do that." And he's like, he says, I'm like, I can do anything I want. I'm the chief of police. And it's the exact same line. Yeah. Yep. It's great. It's really great. And it's a great, it's interesting too, because leading up to that, you would think like he could have been able to close the beaches because he's the chief of police, but he's been strong-armed out of it. But in this moment, he's like, who's going to arrest me? I'm the police.
Yeah,
like,
right. Yeah.
He comes to the realization, like, he probably could have gone ahead and done those things. Better to ask for forgiveness than permission,
Right.
So if he could go back in time and do that stuff anyway, he'd be like, listen, I have authority. I'm the chief of police, So in this, he's like, well, I'm definitely doing this because we got to find out. We got to know. And then we have the tiger shark autopsy, and it's disgusting and great, and it'll make you not look at milk the same way ever again, or license plates, as it were,
right?
And they confirm what Hooper suspected, which is it's not the shark that killed Alex Kittner.
Yep.
Because he not there, he not in the belly.
Yeah, so. The shark has a couple of fish, like a fish head, a whole fish. There's like a tin can, right? And Brody's like, what, did it eat like a car when he pulls the license plate out? And Hooper's like, tiger shark's kind of like a garbage can. It'll eat anything. It'll just anything. It's like a bottom feeder, right? It just goes along, and anything it runs up, it'll eat, that type of thing. And so when he finishes up and he goes, that's it. And then I wrote this line down because he goes,
Yeah.
Martin, you still have you have a bigger problem than that, because Brody's like, we're gonna have to call the mayor and close the beaches, and he's like, you got a bigger problem than that. He goes, you still got one hell of a big fish out there. And then he puts his hands probably about 2 or 3 feet apart, and he goes, with a mouth about this big. And and again, since we, like you said, we haven't seen the shark yet. Your imagination is like, oh my God, the mouth is 10 feet long. I mean, you just don't know, right? And you're like, God, and all of the idea that because the shark's not working, that they can't show it yet. It's just helping build this idea, because here now we have like a guy whose like whole life is studying sharks, and he is like, yeah, you got like a massive shark out there. You know what I mean? And so you're like,
he big.
Yeah, and you're like, how big is it if that guy thinks it's big? So I mean, it's all building up to this. To, of course, then now literally the next day is the 4th of July.
Right.
And now you get those shots of like the ferries showing up and like disgorging like literally thousands of people that are going to swarm these beaches. And you're just like, oh my God, what are you people doing?
Yeah, they're serving up a hot lunch. Oh. That's what's happening. There's a great scene that comes right out of their tiger shark autopsy. Mm-hmm. And Hooper's got a great idea, because he hasn't drank nearly as much as Brody.
Yes.
And he's like, well, this is about the time when a shark would normally be feeding.
It's a night feeder, yeah.
And he's like, so let's go figure it out. Let's go out on the water. And Brody's like, I'm not drunk enough. He's like, yes, you are. Let's go.
He's like, yes, you are. He's like, no, I'm not. Yes, you are.
Yeah. So they go out on his, he's got this, the fancy boat with all the equipment, mm-hmm. all the radar and the sonar and all of that. And it's really cool because he's like, Brody's clearly drunk, and he's like, please don't touch anything.
Well, he's like, do you get the Late Show on this? Yeah. And we're pointing one of the TVs, and he's like, I've got cameras fore and aft. And Brody's like, who pays for all this? And he's like, I do, mostly myself. And he's like, what are you, rich? And he's like, yeah.
I love the line where he's like, me or the whole family?
Yeah. He's like, how much? He's like, well, me or the whole family come out. Yeah. So, but again, it's a fun little interplay between the two of them as they're zipping along in this super boat. Yeah.
Yeah. And the most impactful thing that comes out of this whole scene is, there's something that's showing up on their, the radar sonar. He's like, oh, it's probably just a school of fish or whatever. And they come up on it. And it's Ben Gardner's boat.
Yes.
And they have this whole and he's like, do you know this guy? And he's like, yeah, as a fisherman, I know Ben Gardner. This is a local guy, And he's, and there's some damage to the boat, and it's like half sinking, half resting on the top. So it's sort of like, just sort of bobbing on the top of the water, but it's mm-hmm. mostly filled with water at this point.
Mostly.
And so, Hooper's like, all right, well, let's figure it out. Let's see what's happening. And Brody's like, what are you doing?
Brody's like, you're not going in there.
And he's like, I am. And he's like, I'll be back in 2 minutes. Don't touch anything.
Yeah. Well, he's like, what do I do? And he's like, nothing. Don't touch any of the instrument. Just sit there, basically don't do anything. But yeah, so yeah, when he's like, yeah, I'm going to like jump in the water and like swim around. Like, I'm watching this for the first time, and I'm like, are you insane? You know what I mean?
And he kind of is.
Oh yeah, he is, but you're just like, what are you? No, there's not enough money to get 10-year-old Steve to be like, hey, you know what would be a good idea right now is to jump in the water where like the shark obviously was not too long ago. Sure.
And he even said it's his feeding time. He's a night feeder and blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
Oh my God.
All good reasons to not go in the water.
Yep.
So you already have this tense feeling of like, are you nuts? What are you doing? He said all the stuff about the night feeder stuff. There's like, even though like it's pretty clear that like the thing that looked like a school of fish was actually Ben's boat, but you don't know what else might be out in the water because mm-hmm. they move so quickly. You don't know. And so he gets in the water and you're already like really tense. You're like, something bad's gonna happen, and it does. And he goes underwater and he's looking around because there's a big hole in the side of Ben Gardner's boat, and he's gonna go in there to sort of like poke around and see, and just putting his hand, like coming near the boat, just like being near it has jogged it enough that it shook loose. Still, without question, one of the best jump scares still ever in the history of jump scares. And it's just Ben Gardner's head that bobs out.
Yep.
And I will say that for me, I don't quite do the like the jump scare anymore, but I'm still repulsed by that scene because of the bug that comes crawling out, like this little crab that's in his mouth, and it comes out, and you're like, oh my God.
And like one of his eyeballs is gone. Like he just has an eye socket, so clearly some creature has, eaten that soft tissue, and you're right.
It's pretty grisly.
For my money, it's Ben Gardner's head, and there's a scene in Exorcist 3 that are the greatest like film jump scares I've ever seen.
Yeah.
It is. And Spielberg it's brilliant because he totally fakes us out, the audience out, because Hooper is there, and the first thing is Hooper finds the tooth.
The tooth, yes.
And it's like 3 inches long, this tooth from the great white, and he's holding it, and of course he knows what it is. But then as soon as after he looks at it, he like looks over his shoulder, right? Like behind him, and all of the camera shots are kind of over his shoulder, looking over his shoulder at the boat. That's where the camera's pointing. So we don't know what's behind him. Yeah. And of course we know the damn shark is out there somewhere. Right.
It sure is.
And so all of the misdirection that Spielberg is setting up, going, something's going to get him from behind. Something's going to get him from behind. That's where something's going to jump out and get him. And then he turns around and goes, nope, actually it's right in front of him.
And it scares the bejesus out of you.
And it does. Oh my God, you cannot help but be like, And then, like you said, they do the close-up shot, and you see the little like crayfish or whatever it is kind of scuttle around on his face, and you're like, oh yeah. One again, the iconic sequences of the movie. Everybody remembers the Ben Gardner's head scene. There's no way you don't, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it is. It's unbelievable, and of course, he drops the tooth, and just kind of like Hooper loses it and like freaks out and like tears off the surface. So he doesn't have the tooth. Which is going to come back in the next scene, because the mayor's like, well, can I see the tooth? And he's like, I dropped it. Yeah.
It's like, well, if you don't have the tooth, we got to keep the beaches open.
Right. Yeah, right. Literally, he's like, and you can't prove it. Again, it's just your way. Again, he's doing everything he can to be like, no, I don't care what you say, But, the Ben Gardner scene, without a doubt. Yeah, I mean, iconic, and when you think of Jaws, the movie, how can you not, like, that scene has to be one of the first things you think about.
Oh, absolutely, without question. I think it's great too. We actually went and saw together. We went to see the screening they did. It was re-released over a few weeks. It was re-released in a couple of different areas. They did a special anniversary event on Martha's Vineyard when they showed the movie, and it was a little closer to the actual release date that happened, so it was like July-ish or whatever. And then there were a couple of different releases through the summer, but locally by us they did it was like the last week in August, and it was appearing in a handful of theaters, and we went to see it with our pal Jody, and my wife came with us. And I still think it's absolutely amazing that we know it's coming. Everyone knows it's coming. And the Ben Gardner head literally made my wife go, and she like physically jumped. The jump scare worked as a jump scare, and it was so satisfying. Not because I like want my wife to be scared or anything, but it just goes to show how effective that scene is, you know. And it had been a bit since she'd seen Jaws, but she knew that scene was coming. And even so, even when you know it's coming, you're like, there it
Oh
is.
yeah,
Ugh.
yeah. I mean, yeah,
Because it's just crafted so well. It is the grandfather of all jump scares. Love it.
Yep.
So neither one of us. It's interesting because neither one of us included any of the 4th of July stuff in our notes. So we get this confrontation with the mayor. They're like, hey, Ben Gardner's boat, the head, the tooth, the whatever. You don't have the tooth. We're going to keep the beaches open.
Well, and they get the sign, the billboard.
Yeah, they're in front of the billboard, which somebody had defaced, and he's like, this is a destruction of property and blah blah blah, and he's so angry about it, and Brody's
I want
like,
these
listen.
hooligans strung up by their Buster Browns.
Yeah, and Brody's like, listen, like, who cares? Like, we have an actual shark. Like, who cares about what's on the sign? But the best part, and he tells him, in the later part of the scene when he's like, you do what you got to do, like have, people up in towers, patrol the beaches, do whatever you got to do, but the beaches will be open. Mark my words, it's going to be open. But if you do whatever you got to do to make them safe, that's fine by me.
This is going to be the best summer we ever had.
Right. Right prior to that moment, they're trying so hard to get the mayor to budge, and he just won't budge. And he's so fixated on the picture on the billboard that Hooper's get frustrated, and finally he, Brody one last time is like, help me out here, blah blah blah, and he gets him to come over. He's like, Mayor, no, look at the sign. Those proportions are correct. What's on the sign is a regular picture of like some, a pretty girl swimming in the water, like she's on the,
I think she's on like she's on like
whatever.
A float like Kidner.
Yeah. And so it's very like, casual, like cute, like very 70s image of like an advertisement of, come to Amity, where Amity Island, we're all about summer here, blah, blah, blah. But they've defaced it and done like a little balloon of speech, and it's like, oh, help, shark. And then they drew just the shark fin coming out of the water. And it's all, black paint or whatever. But Hooper tries to, on his final attack that he tries with the mayor is he says, look at the picture. The proportions are correct. That's the size of the great white that we're looking at based on the tooth and da-da-da. And he's like, and he's trying to make that case for him. Like, you're angry about the painting of the picture, and I want to use it as an example of like, that's correct. Like, that's the size of the shark you're dealing with, and they've already had the moment where it's like, well, if you don't have the tooth, you can't prove anything or whatever. And when he's like, the proportions are correct, and then the mayor goes, love to prove that, wouldn't you? Yeah. Get yourself written up in the National Geographic.
Oh, yeah.
And Hooper's reaction and the laughter is one of my favorite parts of the whole movie. Like, I didn't include it in my notes, but I love that laugh that he does, where he's just like, he's so angry and is so amazed that the mayor's only reaction to him giving him facts is to just be like, you'd love to prove that, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Get, and get your name in the National Geographic or whatever.
Yep.
And it's so slimy and gross, and Hooper's reaction is, most people probably would have punched him, and he just laughs and walks away because he's like, I can't help this.
Yeah,
guy.
this guy, he won't let me help him. Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Well, and he also he tells him about the proportions, but then he goes, what we're dealing with here is like a miracle of evolution. It's an eating machine. Said all this machine does is swim and eat and make little sharks, and that's it. And that's when the mayor's like, oh, I'd love to prove that, wouldn't you? It just basically rejects all of this very like rational, sound advice from like people that know what they're talking about, and basically
Yep.
saying, I don't care. If you need to like have an extra person or two on the beach with a pair of binoculars, you do it, but we're not closing.
Yeah.
And I think that I understand his point of view. I do. That
Mm-hmm.
if the beaches are closed, the town's gonna die.
Right.
And
Yeah.
he understands that in a way that I don't think like they're looking at the short term problem of,
Right.
if you let people go in the water, they're going to turn into a hot lunch, like you said,
Right.
I think Hooper says in the movie. And
Yeah.
the mayor's looking at the long term problem of, if we close the beaches, all these people are going to go out of business, and their business are going to close, and then what? How
Yeah.
did the how
And what then? How do we handle
how do they
that? Yeah.
survive? How do they buy food? How do they pay their bills? All those kind of like real world problems that we all deal with, he's trying to think about. So he's like, how bad can it possibly be? You know what I mean?
Right.
He's like,
Right.
look, we'll make the best of it because we don't have a choice. But you're right, it comes across as so cold and
Oh yeah.
unemotional, just this sort of like, money is the only thing that matters here. And the human element, the safety element, pish posh, we don't care. The beaches are going to be
Yeah.
open because we need the money. And yeah,
Right.
and like we were joking, I think on the last one when we were talking about this, just remember, when Jaws 2 comes out, it's like several years after the events of Jaws, and that guy is
Mm-hmm.
still the mayor of this town.
Yeah, just goes to show how powerful local politics is. Just
yeah,
like name
right.
recognition. Yeah,
It's
yeah.
just like, how,
Oh
how
god,
could
yeah.
you vote for this guy again? Oh.
So obviously, like I said, we didn't include our notes for this, but just as a framework, they do have the beaches open. They have like people up in guard towers. They've
A
got
helicopter. They got all the
helicopter
boats.
scanning. You name it. They got boats out beyond the perimeter. They're keeping an eye on pretty much everything that they can. And they do have one scare moment. Everyone's gets, and then they blow the whistle.
Well,
the lifeguard blows the whistle,
but
and he gets
first, before we do that, the mayor comes to the beach and he's walking around and he notices that like nobody's swimming. Everybody's just on the beach, and so yeah,
and the beach is packed.
oh, it is. It's packed, but
It's
no one's
totally
going in
packed.
the water, and so
No one's swimming.
He walks up to this guy that he clearly knows, one of his friends, and the guy's like, "Oh, hey, Larry," and he's like, "Why aren't you guys in the water?" And he's like, "Well, I just put on some suntan lotion, and I'm trying to get some sun." He's like, "Nobody is going in." And then he kind of gives the like, like the like hands, like, come on, get going, kind of shushing them out. And so the dude looks at his wife, and the look on the wife is priceless, because she's just
it is
like,
priceless.
oh my God, we're going to die.
We're going to die because he can't stand up to the mayor.
Right. So they pick up their two kids and their floaty, and they slowly walk out. And I mean, if it was me, I would have gone like up to my knees and been like, okay, we're in the water, and that's it. Those people, they are like fearless, and they go like way out there where they're like bobbing, like, you know what I mean? They can't touch anymore, And I'm just like, you guys are fanatics.
And it's great too, because in that moment too, the kids, they don't know anything different, so they're splashing around and playing, and they're on the floaties, or whatever, on the rafts.
Mm-hmm.
But they are like, they have their hands on the edges of the rafts, and they're just like looking all around them, like keeping an eye, like, I don't see anything. Do you see anything? I can't see anything. You look around, I'll, whatever. And it's so like tense and scary.
Yeah.
And then them being in the water is what compels everybody
and
else.
And then suddenly everybody starts getting in there, and of course you get that look, that shot of the mayor, and he kind of has that like look of glee.
He's like, look what I did. I
made it. I'm excellent, and
excellent, Smithers.
And so they're all in there, and then of course Michael Brody has gotten a sailboat for his birthday, and he and his friends, like 5 or 6 friends, are like carrying it down to the water to go take it sailing. And Chief Brody is like, hey, do me a favor, will ya, and take the boat over to the pond, which is sort of like a an inland waterway kind of a thing that it's separate
it's like
from
a little
the ocean.
cove that's like set off.
Yeah, and it's obviously much calmer because you don't get the tides and things in there because of how it's set up. And literally Michael, the kid's like, the pond's for old ladies, and Brody's like, well, do this for your old man, okay?
Yeah.
So they move and they go into the pond, which is going to come back. It's definitely Chekhov's pond here because it's going to come back.
Yes.
Yes. And so now everyone is out in the water and they're splashing and they're doing all the things you should not be doing in this situation because you're attracting the shark, and yet out beyond them, we have all these boats that are patrolling, and all these guys are armed to the teeth with rifles and machine guns, and they're got the binoculars, and we see Hendrix, and he's out there, and he's like, wait, I think I saw a shadow, and then they're like, nope, you're okay. And he's like, all right, sorry, and they're doing all the things they can, and the helicopter's flying over. We see Peter Benchley as the reporter doing the news broadcast, going, a shadow has come over Amity in the form of a great white shark, and all that stuff is going on, right? And
yep.
And then suddenly you see one of the guys on the boats, and he's looking, and off to the side in the water, you see the fin.
Yeah, and the fin, and then it's the way that it moves through the crowd. It's just like one person sees it, and he reacts and is like, oh my God, and he goes to leave, and then one other person, like a woman, is like, oh my God. And yeah,
panic,
and then
commences.
It's just panic, and it's amazing. And right in the midst of the panic, the great part is one of the lifeguards stands up to get people out and starts blowing on the whistle.
Yeah.
And Brody's like, no whistles, because it's just gonna create more panic.
Yeah,
right. Yeah. And it doesn't matter. They still do it, and everybody's flying out of the water.
And they're running over people, and like the couple
it's
that
dangerous.
The mayor coerced to go in first. They the man, he gets trampled, and they have to drag him to the shore eventually. I mean, it is a bad scene where I'm sure people were hurt just getting out of the water, although fortunately no one was killed. And then it cuts to the fin after they've caused all this panic, and it kind of keeps moving, and then suddenly it stops, and it tips over, and you see that it's two 10-year-old or 12-year-old kids with snorkels and masks, and they've made a cardboard fin, and they're just screwing with everybody. And
it's great. And I love the moment where the one he's like, he made me do it.
Yeah.
He made me do it.
He talked me into it. Yeah, because they come up and they dump the fin, and they take off their goggles, and they're kind of getting their breath and stuff, and then they realize that there's something behind them, and they turn around, and there's 5 boats full of these law enforcement guys, all with their rifles pointed at them, ready to blow them away. And they're just like, oh shoot.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah. It's a great little moment there.
And again, it's a wonderful little misdirection from Spielberg, because he hits you right. Oh, you think the shark's gonna kill somebody out in this group? Nope. It's just a hoax. Sorry, it's just someone messing with you. And then it immediately cuts to this kind of hippie girl on the shore who starts going, the shark is going into the pond. Oh my God, the shark's going into the pond. And Brody is with his wife, and he's like, oh, now what? And then his wife looks at him and goes, Michael's in the pond. And then suddenly Brody's like, crap, and starts sprinting to the pond, right? And again, brutal sequence, because Michael and his 3 or 4 friends are on the boat, and they're trying to get the knots tied and the sails put up and do all that stuff. And there's this guy who's in a little dinghy, a rowboat, and he's rowing out to him hey, do you guys need any help? Or, let's get moving here. And the shark literally tips over the dinghy and the sailboat and capsizes both of them. So now all of these people are in the water, and the shark has decided it's the guy in the dinghy. That's what it's got a taste for, and just comes up, and we kind of get a little view of the shark in this scene. right? We see
Yep.
it like near the surface of the water, right? But not the
Yep.
whole thing, just kind of like the mouth and the eye.
Yeah.
But and it rolls over and it bites the dude, and then there's the shot of like his like leg like falling to the bottom of the
Yeah.
pond, and it's like the shoe is still on it, and the sock. I mean, it's yeah, and
It's great.
oh, it is, and it's blood's trickling out of where it got, and it like he bit like off the leg like up near like his waist. I mean, it's like the whole leg,
Yeah.
right? It's not none of this like half leg crap. This shark is like, I want the full leg here, and then the shark finishes off that dude and then literally swims right past Michael.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, that's such and again, from the shark's perspective, you don't see the actual shark. You just see the camera goes right by Michael, and he never he just is treading water and is like,
yeah, he's gone. That blows out his little like 10, 12-year-old mind. And so like to the point where like his friends have to like bring him to the shore and like drag him up on the shore and set him down. You know what I mean? Like he can't move. He's like catatonic. He's just in shock. Literally, he just that's too much for him. And I always kind of laugh at this moment because Brody gets there and Brody's wife gets there, and they're caring for her son, and he grabs all the beach towels to kind of warm him up and stuff, and of course she's like, oh my God, he's dead, and he's like, no, he's in shock. And then there's this scene where like Brody like gets up and he looks out into the empty water, and he sort of has this like, okay, shark. Now it's personal,
You've made it personal. Now I'm gonna get
right.
you.
It's just like, now you've gone too far, right? And I always just kind of chuckle at that moment. Like I'm like, really? This time it's personal, really? Okay. But anyway, so now basically it's on like Donkey Kong, and Brody gets the mayor to sign the waiver so he can hire Quint. And now we're gonna go out and settle the shark's hash, and now we can kind of move into like the last third of the movie is now is the orca out at sea with a crew of 3 guys. So you've got Quint, the crazy ex-sailor, you've got the shark-loving Hooper, and you've got the man who's afraid of the water in Chief Brody.
It's a great
and they're
combination.
Gonna go
I mean, really.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah. And I made a point too where I was like, it's a good mixture of like it's old school and like new technology, because you get Quint and the his methods that become evident right off the bat. Like his methods are to like, he does the thing with the gun and he shoots the barrel because the whole idea is that the shark, when he goes down underwater, he wouldn't be able to pull that barrel down with him. It's gonna pull against him, force him up to the surface. So he's got these sort of like old school methods to get the shark to stay near the surface, so that then they can kill it once it's at the surface. And Hooper brings along, he's got like this, cage to use, and he's got these, they look like spears or darts or whatever that have like, that he can use that have drugs, and he brings, tanks of like, scuba tanks or whatever, brings air. And so it's like the mixture between the old school and the new school stuff, I think, is really sharp in that focus too. And you can see how like Quint just has like disdain for everything that Hooper does. Yeah. And Hooper, it's weird. He has kind of like, even from the beginning, he's got like this sort of begrudging respect for Quint, but it's not like, he still thinks that he's just like a cantankerous old man. You know what I mean? He just, yeah.
He thinks he's a cantankerous old man, and Quint thinks that Hooper is like this rich kid who's never worked a day in his life, right. And so he goes, tie me a sheep shank, and he throws him a rope, and he's like, I haven't had to pass basic seamanship in a while, and they're kind of going back and forth, and then Quint goes, give me your hands. and he grabs his hands and he's like, these hands are smooth. You've been counting money your whole life. And I love it because Hooper's like, hey, man, I don't need this working class hero crap, okay? Basically like, back off, all right? I'm just as much of a sailor as you are, old man, And he mentions like he was on the America's Cup races, and he's done a bunch of these Transpac cruises, and so the dude's put in his time and knows how to sail and knows his way around a boat and so on. But again, you're right. I think the respect goes both ways, because I think Quint respects Hooper on some levels for his knowledge and his education on sharks.
Yes,
he'll never admit it, but he does.
Right.
And I think absolutely Hooper respects Quint just because, he's been doing it forever and has all that like practical real world experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, agreed. I love the mixture of the three of them, though, just because, like you're saying, like they're just so very different from each other, and the fact that Brody's even there,
Oh,
and
yeah,
the fact that,
it's his charter,
right? And he's also like, because he's afraid of the water. It's just. It's just hilarious, So
it's only an island if you look at it from the water.
That doesn't make any sense.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, exactly. So there's lots of really great, iconic moments that happen. Great lines. Quint is just like a one-liner factory, between his, here's to swimming with bow-legged women, and singing the farewell and adieu to you fair Spanish ladies and all of that. I mean, he's just full of, and he's even does, there was an old lady from Nantucket, like those kind of things. Like, he's just full of one-liners. He
held on to her virginity for 15 years. Not too bad for this vicinity or whatever he said. Yeah. Oh yeah. yeah. And of course, Brody's wife is like, that's Quint, huh?
Yeah.
And he's like, colorful, huh?
Yeah, offended. Well, and he's, I love it because he's being crass in front of Mrs. Brody. And then, he asks Chief if he's brought, like, his boots, but he's like, I hope you brought your rubbers.
I see you brought your rubbers, Chief. Oh, yeah. Oh, he's just, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's just,
and like when they're wheeling in the cage, Quint's like, Jesus Christ, what's that? And he's like, anti-shark cage. And he's like, anti-shark. He's like, cage go in the water. You go in the cage. Shark's in the water.
Yeah.
Our shark. And then he's like, all right, whatever. And then what does he say? He's like, I don't know what the shark's going to do with all this gear you're bringing with, Mr. Hooper. I suppose he could eat it. I seen him eat a rocking chair one time.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. But just the description of like, yeah, he'll eat pretty much anything. So we get all these really great moments, there's like this unspoken, like, sort of like this camaraderie in the beginning. They all have a purpose too. It becomes evident pretty quick. Hooper knows how to drive the boat. And Quint is the one who's hunting. So
Quint's the captain.
Yeah, so he's the captain, so he's keeping an eye on where the shark is. And in order to get the shark to come to where they are, Brody's doing the shit labor, which is putting out the chum line.
The chum line.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Oh.
Yeah, and our first real look at the shark is with the chum line. And so he's throwing it out there. And to be fair, if you don't know what chum is, it's literally just cut up pieces of fish in a bucket. Ugh, and it's all the blood, because the whole point of it's basically the chum of like leftover. It's probably fish heads and fish tails and whatever. It's the shit that nobody's going to want to eat. And you just keep that, and if you put it out on the top of the water, it'll bring the predators to the surface, because they're going to go after the blood. They can smell it in the water.
Yeah, the sharks can smell blood like 10 miles away, type thing.
So
you always hear those stories. So
it's going to
attract
them out.
Yeah.
So that's Brody's job, because he doesn't know how to drive the boat. He doesn't know how to do any of the other things. So this is where he can be most useful. But it smells like shit. It's gross.
Oh, because like you said, like you get it from places that have caught fish and have like, harvested them and filleted them and stuff. It's like you said, it's all the extra stuff, the guts and the heads and the tails, the things that you don't eat usually. And so a lot of it is like rotting and spoiled.
Yes.
And I mean,
Ugh.
it's just a disgusting smell. It's all ugh.
Yeah.
And you see Brody has like a little towel, and he's like pouring like Old Spice into the towel and then holding it up to his nose when he's shoveling the chum. It smells that bad.
Yeah.
That he needs that strong of something else to get through. I mean, yeah, it's literally, like you said, it's a shirt job. There's no doubt.
Oh yeah, nobody wants that job. And the problem is that Brody knows too that it's a shit job, that he's being given like the worst job because he doesn't have any experience, but he's still
Right.
like, I'm the chief of police, I'm in charge. And as he said earlier, it's his charter. But just because it's his charter, he's not in charge.
No.
So he's doing the chum line. He's not liking it. And he's there, and he's got the little thing with the Old Spice to help combat the smell. But then there's also, he's smoking a cigarette too.
Mm-hmm.
And then he gets this moment where it's like, yeah, come down here and eat this. And he like takes a scoop and he goes to throw it. And that's when the shark comes out of the water, just like, rears his head. And both Hooper and Quint were not looking. They were looking out in the front or doing something else. And Brody's the one that sees it. And he cannot believe what he just saw. He is absolutely struck by it.
Yeah, Hooper is up driving the boat.
Yep.
And that's what sets off Brody, because Quint is in the cabin. He's like gonna restring the fishing pole, the deep sea fishing pole, because the previous scene he had caught something and they were trying to reel it in and the line snapped.
Yeah.
And so and of course it's kind of a tense sequence between Quint and Hooper, because Hooper's like, it's not a shark, it's like a game fish or something, and Quint's like, hey Hooper, why don't you just shut the hell up? And so, but then the line snaps, so he's in the process of like getting a new hook and restringing the pole, so he's in there. So you're right, they're not paying attention, and he tells Hooper slow ahead, and Brody is back with the chum bucket, and he's like, you heard him, slow ahead. He's like, I could do slow ahead, like, why can't I get that job type thing. And that's when Bruce comes up out of the water, and the reaction from Brody is
Classic.
Again one of those classic things that, by the way, an ad lib.
Oh, love it.
And so, yeah, he sees it, and I can't remember if the cigarette falls out of his mouth or not. I think it does. And he backs into the cabin where Quint is, and he, just kind of turns and looks at Quint and very softly goes, you're going to need a bigger boat.
Yeah.
And Quint's like, what? Like, what are you talking about? And then now we hear the music, and the shark is up, the dorsal fin is on the surface, and it like cuts right by the boat. And this is where everybody, the three protagonists as well as the audience, finally gets to see what the shark kind of looks like. And you're like, oh my God, is that big?
It's and they even have a discussion about the size. That's a 20-footer, and they're like 25,
25
based on
3 tons of him.
Yeah, just amazing to finally, everybody sees it, everybody comments on it, and then they all like jump into action, Hooper wants to take pictures, and Quint is, he wants to get the rifle ready to shoot the barrels and get started with that, and Brody is just like moving around too, and he's like, we're gonna call it in, right? We're getting a bigger boat. We can't do this on this boat, right?
It's bigger than this boat.
It's bigger than the boat.
We need to get a new boat. And I love it too when Hooper like is trying to get Brody to go out on the little pulpit that extends out of the front
I need something
of the boat.
In the foreground.
Yeah, I need foreground. He's like, foreground my ass. because again, he's like, I hate water, and you want me to go out there? I don't think so, and so then Quint tells Hooper to tie up the first barrel to the spear he's going to try and launch from the gun.
Yep.
And at that point, here again, we kind of get that clash between old school and new school, like you were saying, because Hooper immediately drops the rope and like goes into the cabin, and he gets out some of his tech.
Yeah.
And he has this like little device that like has like a strobe light that he starts up, so it'll start going off, and I think it even beeps a little.
Yeah.
And it's like a shark marker type thing that you tag on a shark, and then you can follow it. It's easier to observe and stuff. And so he goes back and he's trying to tie that to the barrel at the same time as he's trying to attach the barrel. And of course, the shark's getting closer and closer, and Quint wants to shoot, and he's like, hurry up. And he's like, don't wait for me. And it's really tense, and you're like, oh my God. And of course, Brody's like, kill it, Quint, kill it, and then finally Hooper finishes it, and he goes, go, and he shoots, and he doesn't quite get the headshot he wants, but he does hit it, and one of the barrels is attached to the shark, and now they're chasing after these yellow barrels, and again, what a scary thing. That's not scary, but Spielberg makes it scary.
Yeah.
Is that when those damn barrels pop up out from under the water, you're like, oh my God, where's the shark?
Yeah. Oh God, yeah.
Because it's got to be nearby.
Yeah, it's such a sense of foreboding. And it's great, too, because it's just like visually, you can't miss it. They're these bright yellow barrels.
Bright yellow barrels,
you couldn't possibly miss it if you tried.
Well, and then once he shoots it, the shark tries to run away, and so then they chase after it, and they're gonna try and like shoot it with get another barrel on it, and then you see the barrel, and it's way in front of the boat, and then all of a sudden it just dives, and is gone, and then it's gone. And Quint, I love it because Quint has that look on his face of like, thanks a lot, Hoop.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you're like, oh my God, it pulled that barrel under the water.
Yeah, which just goes to show how strong it is. That shows how big it is.
How big it is, yeah. And so you're like, holy. And again, I think at that point, a lot of the audience is definitely in the Brody camp of like, we need to like go in and get like a battleship or something, right?
So the first round of, I guess you could call it, not necessarily attack, but just sort of like positioning themselves with the shark, because they didn't really cause any damage to the shark. What they're doing is they're almost marking it so that they can cause damage, because they want, like we said, to keep it close to the surface. It'll make it easier to kill. Yeah. So it is a bonding moment for them. And so that night after there's this great scene where they're like, it's after they've ate dinner, they're sitting around and they're having a couple of drinks, and it's dark outside, and you have the barrels come up at one point.
Oh man. Yep.
But in the meantime, they're inside having a great old time, and it's what you would expect from three guys who don't know each other terribly well, or trying to get to know each other, and they're telling stories, and it's all like sort of liquor fueled, and it's first it's fun and funny, and they're because they're comparing scars, and it's great. Yeah. They're going back and forth with this scar and that scar, and then it gets really silly because Matt Hooper opens up his shirt and he's like, right here, and he says the name
Marianne Moffat.
Yeah, and it's just like, she broke my heart, and everybody's laughing. And Quint has one that's on his forearm, but the scar is
yeah, Brody sees it and he goes, what's that? And he's like, that's a tattoo that I got removed. And Hooper still is in comic mode. He's like, let me guess, mother. And right? He just starts, laughing hysterically, and Quint kind of smiles a little, and then he goes, Mr. Hooper, that's the USS Indianapolis. And like pin
changes.
Drops.
Everything
right?
changes.
Oh.
And the thing is that as time and distance goes, it's not going to be the thing that makes people go, oh, I know what that is. But in the mid 70s, you're only about 30 years out from World War II ish. And his tattoo, it said the USS Indianapolis. The Indianapolis is the ship that delivered the Hiroshima bomb. And, there's lots written about it or whatever. And then proceeds from there one of the greatest monologues in the history of film. And it's the whole conversation, the fact that he's got them, not a sound coming from either one of them. And especially like Hooper was right there, like making the jokes, oh, mother, just a second ago. But as soon as he says the Indianapolis, he's like, oh, wow. Because they know what it means.
Hooper knows what it means. Brody does not, because Hooper immediately is like, you were on the Indianapolis? Yeah. And then Brody's like, what happened? So he is not as up on the history of that ship. But yeah, without a doubt, Hooper immediately knows that not only what it's about, but the context with sharks.
Yes, exactly.
That is going to come about. Whereas Brody's like, what happened? And he's not quite as, he's still, when he says like what happened, it's still kind of a playful thinking, oh, it's probably a great story kind of a thing. And it is a great story, but it's not, right? So, but yeah, and so this launches into this just amazing monologue that Robert Shaw just chews the scenery with in all the right ways. And I mean, what can you say? I mean, you've got Ben Gardner's head, you've got Alex Kittner on the raft, and then you've got Quint talking about the Indianapolis. I mean, those are like the iconic parts of Jaws, right? I mean, how can you not? And then of course you've got the smile, you son of a bitch. At the end. I mean, those are the things. I mean, when you think of the movie, those are at least for me, that's what I think of.
Yeah, I always think of this scene when I think of the movie, and it's, because it's so close to the end. We're probably like, what, 10 minutes from the end, 15 minutes tops from the conclusion?
Maybe 20. Yeah, we're getting real close.
And so it says everything, and you have a picture in your head of who Quint is as a person right up until this moment, and then it changes because you have preconceived notions about who he is, and and he's been really crude and crass so far, and you're like, well, and he's been kind of an ass to both Hooper and to Brody, and so you have like an opinion and you have a preconceived notion, and then you hear this story and you're like, everything is different now. And how I feel about this guy is totally different. His relationship to the water, his relationship to sharks, I include the whole monologue. We could sit here and say the whole thing, but to me, the most important part of the monologue, I feel, is how, the whole story about being in the water with the sharks and whatever, and his realization is he says, I'll never put on a life jacket again. And it tells you his psyche and it's like, it's Chekhov's life jacket, because he does not put on a life jacket, in the final scenes. But
he does not.
He looks at them and makes a decision and grabs them. And in your head, you're like, that's how bad this is. He's going to put on a life jacket. And he doesn't put it on. But he throws one to Brody and says, here, Chief, put this on, but I love it. Humanizes him in a way that, we haven't had so far. And just his, you completely understand his take. You understand his obsession with the sharks, and you understand his take on never wanting to wear the life jacket again. It puts you right inside his the mind of Quint. It's just so brilliantly done.
Oh yeah.
Love
it. When he talks about that they form themselves into squares when they're in the water. And he's like, the idea was when a shark comes up to the nearest person, they start pounding and hollering. And he's like, and sometimes a shark go away, sometimes he wouldn't go away. And then sometimes that shark, he looks right into you, right into your eyes. And then the line when he goes, the thing about a shark, it's got lifeless eyes, like a doll's eyes.
Yep.
When he comes at you, he doesn't even seem to be living. And then he goes, until he bites you, and those black eyes roll over white. And then you hear that terrible high-pitched screaming, and the ocean turns red. And despite all the pounding and the hollering, they all come in and they rip you to pieces. I mean, wow.
What a line.
Thing. Yeah. And by the way, that whole monologue, that was written by a guy named John Milius.
Mm-hmm.
That was John Milius was a guy who went to film school with Spielberg and Lucas and Coppola and all those guys. And he was known for a guy who could write a really good monologue. Like, I don't know how he developed that skill, but he did. And so when they got out of film school, he was one of the last guys to get to direct a movie. And the first movie he ever directed wasn't until 1982 when he directed Conan the Barbarian with Arnold Schwarzenegger. But in the 70s, a lot of his buddies, Spielberg, Lucas, so on, whenever they needed something written up like this, they would go to him.
Yeah.
And he wrote some of the Martin Sheen stuff from Apocalypse Now.
Oh wow.
As well. And so he was kind of like the ringer, like when you need like a really good bit of dialogue, a monologue type thing, he would be the guy. So he came in and he wrote this bit, took the stuff from the novel and turned it into it. But yeah, it's amazing. And the thing for me that to this day sticks with me is when Quint talks about the guy that he knew from Cleveland that he bumps into like in the third or fourth day.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, I thought he was asleep. And so I reached over to wake him up, and like he bobbed up and down sideways because he'd been bitten in half below the waist. That image in 10-year-old Steve's mind was that freaked me out. That you would just like bump into someone and you're like, hey man, wake up. And then you turn out like half of them is gone. And again, there's no visual. We're not seeing it. We're just hearing him talk about it. It's just haunting. And you're right. When that monologue is over, you know all you need to know about why Quint hunts sharks for a living.
Oh God, yeah.
And I know you wrote this in your notes, the kind of the Captain Ahab comparison.
Yep.
The Moby Dick theme, the idea of this character has, suffered a personal assault from. Now, the difference in Moby Dick, it's like he's after the one whale that messed with him earlier.
Right.
Whereas here, Quint is just like, I want to kill the only good shark is a dead shark, right? That's
right.
His whole mantra. That's what he took from it. But again, you see all those, it's all there, and I know you wrote down the end of his monologue there when it basically says that the PBY comes down, and he said that when he was the most scared was waiting for his turn to get out of the water. And then he ends it with this line that is awesome, when he says, I'll never put on a life jacket again.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's just the weight
so
of
cool.
it. Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah.
And so then they kind of catch their breath, and then they start singing the Show Me the Way to Go Home song, which, I mean, for people of a certain age like us,
yes.
How many times did you walk home from the bars singing Show Me the Way to Go Home?
Oh, yeah.
You
totally.
knew. It was sort of like a passage, and because it's a fun song, it's an easy song, and because of Jaws, everybody knows it.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Yeah. We sing along with the lyrics for sure.
You do, right?
Yeah.
And you can speed it up, and it's fun. And while they're doing it, suddenly the shark like shows up, right? We get that shot of the barrel, and it's on the surface, and Hooper's little device is flashing and beeping, right? And the shark like tears massive holes in the boat. Very similar, I would imagine, as to what happened to Ben Gardner.
Yeah, absolutely. Just like a pop
You
in
know?
the side. It's interesting too, like, because you don't think about Ben Gardner's boat as like the, Chekhov's boat thing, but it really is. Like it
Mhm.
comes true for them later as well.
Oh, it's clearly foreshadowing.
Oh yeah.
Clearly, and if you look, it's really interesting because Ben Gardner's boat is kind of got the same color scheme as the Orca.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I mean, you're right. It's not nearly as big. The Orca's a much bigger boat, but it's still, there's enough similarities to the two that it can't be a coincidence that Spielberg is saying, hey, you know what? We're going to find this boat like partially sunk in the water, much like the Orca is going to be at the
Yeah.
end. And that's going to happen again. It's literally those two characters are kind of like seeing their destiny when they run into that boat. If you want to look into it that weird and that deeply, it's all there because, again, Spielberg, pretty darn good filmmaker and knows how to tell a really compelling story.
Yeah, he's like I said, this young kid, the Spielberg kid, he's going
Up and
places.
comer.
He's going places. Keep an eye on him.
Yeah.
Because you're gonna hear his name again. And I
Yeah.
don't know when it's
So
gonna be,
they,
but soon. Yeah.
1941,
Yeah.
I believe is the no,
Yeah.
Close Encounters. That's the next thing, Close Encounters. But so the boat like takes on a lot of water, and there's this great scene where the lights go out, and Hooper's like, Grady ate the light, and they go out onto the deck, and like Quint like is trying to shoot it with the rifle, which is good because it establishes that they have the rifle, which is going to come back a little bit later, and then just for me personally, one of the things from Jaws that I always remember is in this scene they catch two shooting stars on camera.
Yep.
And complete. I mean, they almost look fake when you watch. Don't they? Don't they kind of look like that was animated? You know what I mean? Because they're so distinct and they go all the way from one side of the screen to the other. I mean, they're very, very present and visual, and yet they are completely. It was just weird. It was accident. I mean, it just happened that they were filming those night shots and they got these two shooting stars. One goes behind Roy Scheider, and the other one is just a long shot of the Orca, and it goes in. I always that those scenes always kind of it affects me because, again, I remember it as a kid. All these years later, every time I see it, I know it's coming, and I'm like, "Yep, they're those shooting stars."
Shooting stars, you're so pretty in the midst of
They
so
are.
much death and destruction.
I know, and violence and so on. Yeah. So now the boat's been kind of like messed up, right? And the engine has got salt water in it, and the rudder doesn't really turn very well. So things are not looking all that great for the Orca and its crew the next morning.
Yeah, it's not great at all. And so there's they're trying to fix it, and it's working to a degree, but then the
barrel.
Yeah, they try and add the other barrel on to bring it down further, and then they go after it, and they're like pushing Quint is pushing the engine too hard. At first it made sense because Brody is like, we got to go back. Like, if we can't catch the shark in this, the boat is damaged. We have to go back. We have to go back. And Quint is resisting. And then he's like, what I'm going to do is, he's got all these barrels on him. I'm going to pull him into shallow waters. And if I pull him into the shallow waters, it'll drown him. And then, it'll kill two birds. We're heading to shore, and we're going to try and kill it by pulling it into shallow waters. And, and so Brody is, placated briefly, but Quint is just like pushing the engine, and he's pushing and he's pushing and he's pushing and he's pushing. And finally, it comes almost to blows between him and Hooper, and it just eventually the engine just gives out. It can't do anything.
He burns
anymore.
it out.
Yeah,
he burns it out.
Yeah.
He burns it out. Yeah, and he before he does that too, Brody tries to use the radio
Yeah.
to call like the
Mhm.
Coast Guard and Quint comes in and like destroys the radio.
Yeah, which is so
You
weird.
know, well, it's just hubris, right?
Yeah.
He doesn't need any help. He's gonna take care of the shark. He doesn't need anyone. And of course, the look on Hooper's face is great. It's priceless in that sequence when he's like, "Oh my God, what are you doing?" And of course, Brody's like, "That's just great. You're so defiable." He's just like letting Quint have it, and Quint's like, "Yeah." And then at that point, Hooper's like, "Boys, I think he's come back for his afternoon feeding, and the shark's coming at me." Yeah, so and things start moving much quicker at that point. So he then he gets in and he burns the engine out, so now they have no propulsion. The boat is definitely like kind of sinking.
Yeah.
I mean, not great. And they're like, "What do we do now?" And that's when Quint asks Hooper about, what exactly can you do with these chemicals and drugs that you've brought on? And he says, well, if I can get close enough, I can inject him with this poison, it'll kill him. And Quint points out that, well, you'll never get this little hypodermic needle through his skin because it's too thick and too tough. And Hooper's like, yeah, that's true, but if I can get him close to the shark cage, I can stab him with one of my like spears.
Yeah.
And so, and immediately Brody's like, yeah, you know why that's a shit idea? I mean, channeling he's foreshadowing Jim from 28 Days Later, because he's like, that's a bad idea. You know why? Because it's just obviously a bad idea. But they put the cage together. And he, puts on his wetsuit, right? And he, there's a great line when you put on your goggles, you're supposed to spit in them to kind of make sure they don't fog up on you. Something about your saliva does something so that your goggles won't fog. And he is trying to do that, and he looks up at Brody, and he's like, I don't got any spit.
Yeah.
He's like so nervous about what he's gonna do. So even he knows like this is like a suicide mission, basically. But yeah, so he goes in the water, and how would you say the anti-shark cage plan worked out for him?
I mean, I know how it ends, so Hooper's fine. But until you know what happens to Hooper ultimately, it doesn't work out well for him.
It really doesn't. Yeah,
no, I mean, between the whole idea is the cage is supposed to get him close enough, but he's in the cage and he's doing that thing where it's like, I can't see anything in front of me, and he's like, oh God, it's right behind me, isn't it? And you turn around and it's coming like right at him, right at the cage, and it's trying to get to Hooper inside the cage, so it keeps like sort of ramming it, but then it eventually ends up on top of the cage, and it's almost like it got a little stuck. It's trying to pull it off of its, because it's got like chains and ropes attached to it and whatever, and it's almost like it's trying to detach it a little bit. Now, a topside on the boat, all they can see on the Orca is that there's all kinds of movement, and there's splashing from the shark being on top of the cage, but it's starting to pull like the cage is on like a winch that's like on like a little pivot point there, and it's starting to bend down because obviously the couple tons of weight that the
shark has to weigh.
And it's pulling it down, and finally the whole thing snaps, this whole like sort of block and tackle thing. The shark gives up and flies away. He's like, okay, I'm done with this, no fun. And he goes away, and they get it all set up. They're like, put this here, put that there, whatever. And then Quint is like maddeningly, he's like trying to winch it up as fast as he can, and they're like crank it and crank it and crank it and crank it and crank it. And the cage comes up, and it's completely mangled. It's completely bent. And there is
broken.
There is no Hooper in there.
Yeah, and Hooper's gone. Yeah, I mean, the shark destroys that cage.
Oh God,
I mean, And interestingly enough, the footage, because we actually see the shark like rolling on top of the cage, and it's like a real shark, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's not the fake one. That is like footage from this married couple that were like shark expert type folks. They're Australian, and or maybe from New Zealand. I can't remember, somewhere down under. And they recorded that. They filmed that footage earlier in the earlier 70s. And Spielberg found it. Those people actually came to the set and helped consult a little about sharks and shark activity and how they move and how they do stuff and so on. And they used that footage in the movie. And I mean, it's unbelievable how perfect it is for this story, you know. And maybe Peter eventually heard about it or had seen it and incorporated it into the story. I don't know what he knew about it, but oh my God, what an amazing find for Spielberg that you get actual footage of a great white shark destroying a shark cage.
Yeah.
When you're doing your movie about a great white shark destroying a shark cage. You know, I mean, it's just unbelievable. But when they winch that cage out of the water, and you're right, he like jury rigs the cable on like one of the like foot pegs you use to climb up the mast.
Yep.
Like that's because, like you said, the normal spar that the winch is on, the wood has just snapped.
Yeah.
From the weight. So he jury rigs it, and he's cranking, like you said, he's just cranking like crazy, and you see this cage slowly coming up to the surface, and then it comes up, and I mean, it's literally like hanging in pieces. That's how much this shark destroyed it and just, you know, beat the crap out of it. And more importantly, Hooper's just gone.
Yeah.
You know, and you have to think that both of those guys are like, well, he's dead. You know, there's no way they're going to think that he survived. But they really don't have much time to even think about that, because literally as soon as they pull it up to the surface, the shark goes, you know, I think I'm just going to jump into the boat.
Yeah, what it is I'm tired of swimming and I want to take a little nap. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to like beach myself onto the boat. So yeah, it's great because in that moment they're sort of briefly sort of mentally mourning the loss of Hooper, because there's literally no sign of him from the cage, and they're trying to figure, you know, in their head they're probably like, Jesus, like, now what do we do? And in that brief moment of silence and nothing happening, that's when the shark jumps up onto the back of the boat, in essence. And like you said, the boat is already starting to sort of like tilt and fill with water a little bit from the damage that's happened into the hull. And so it very easily tilts toward the shark. So you've got the shark at the end of the boat, and he's got his mouth open.
He's chewing.
I mean, he's getting ready to. He's doing pre-chew. So he's like, he's anticipating, I'm gonna have a meal in like 10 seconds. And he's not wrong.
No.
So with the tilt, it shakes, you know, Brody and Quint so that they fall down. But because it tilts up, Quint starts to slide, and Brody grabs his arm, but he can't hang on because the tilt is so severe that it's too heavy.
He slips through.
And he slips through, and the moment of Quint sliding down, and in the moment where he's just like, and you can hear it, he has almost a matched reaction to Chrissy's first dunk underwater. You can hear him going,
oh yeah,
while he's trying to like, because he's
kicking and
frantically kicking at the shark, like trying to get it to like go away, because there's, you know, anecdotal stories of, you know, if you hit a shark direct hit on the snout, like on the edge of its nose, it will like, you know, shock them, and they'll pull back, and it could
sometimes
save you.
they will, sometimes they'll veer off or something, yeah.
And so Quint is trying to do that. But the way he's like, you know, like spider legs are just like, he's just like shaking his legs, like trying to not, because if he keeps them still, it's gonna slide right into the shark's mouth and he's gonna be gone. So he's like trying to like pump his legs and keep himself from getting inside the mouth. He's kicking at the nose and then realizes that it's too much and he can't do it, and his feet slide in and then the shark down and he's right on Quint's like legs and midsection. And Quint just immediately screams in pain. He's got blood come out of his mouth.
Oh yeah.
And it's
never a good sign.
No, that's always a bad sign for sure. And so it's this really, really great, like well-filmed scene where he's just like, and the shark actually like, he almost like shakes a little bit, almost like, when a dog gets like a bunny in its mouth and shakes to kill the bunny. There's a little bit of a shake there where he slides back and forth slightly. And then he just really clamps down. And Quint is like outside of the shark and is like, has his arms around like the snout of the shark. And eventually the shark just like releases from the boat and slides back into the water and takes Quint with him.
Takes down in the depths. Yeah, and Quint like somehow Quint gets his hands on the machete.
Yes.
That he had like stuck into because the barrels come up at one point before they burn out the engine, and they like tie the ropes of the barrels to the stern cleats, and they're gonna try and drag the shark in, and then the shark starts pulling against them, and like literally they're like, we got to cut these ropes, otherwise the shark's gonna like tear the boat apart, it's so strong. And so he gets this machete out because they can't undo the cleats, the shark's pulling too much, and so he's gonna cut the rope, and then suddenly both cleats just break off and go, and so he takes the machete and he just kind of sticks it in the side of the boat, just leaves it out there. Well, somehow he gets a hold of it and he's like stabbing the shark like near one of its eyes with this machete while it's chewing on him. I mean, it is a bloody, painful, violent death for Quint. There's no doubt. And then that last bit, like you said, when the shark has killed him and like slides off the back of the boat and goes under the water, and the last thing you see is Quint and his like from about like his chest up to his head, and his arms are exposed. The rest is in the shark, and the last thing you see is Quint going under the water. I mean, what an image.
Yeah.
And you're just like, wow.
And
because
no. Yeah. Finish your thought, and I'll go to mine.
I was just gonna say, because in like 5 minutes, like 2/3 of the cast kind of dead, I mean, you see Hooper like swim away and kind of hide down there in the rocks, but maybe the shark got him, we don't know. Well, we haven't seen him for a while, right? But so I mean, just from an audience standpoint, at this point, when if you don't know what the story is, there is certainly a bit of fear, uncertainty, and doubt creeping into the audience of like, this might not have a good ending. Right?
Have we ever seen a summer blockbuster where nobody survives?
Right. Like, and you certainly, you're thinking like, wait, could the shark actually win? You know what I mean? Because it doesn't look good, because now the two guys who you thought knew the most how to deal with this situation, had the most practical experience, they're now lunch meat, right? And the guy who hates the water and knows absolutely nothing about this, he's the guy that's left.
It's interesting because it's like he almost has to like kick into high gear, even though it's like there's this despair, you know what I mean? Like Quint is gone, and he's the one who knew everything about sharks and about hunting them. Hooper's gone, as far as he knows, and Hooper knew everything about like the anatomy and like everything about sharks. They both knew how to drive the boat, and so Brody doesn't know anything about anything, and he's the one that's left. So he has to really sort of like figure out like, what's my next thing to do. And he's like trying to like, he's trying to figure it out. But like, meanwhile, he's on a clock because the boat is sinking. It is full on sinking. And he's in the water of the inside of the boat, and the shark pokes his face in through the window, like the side window, and he just, to get him to go away, it's the same action that Quint was doing, except he grabs whatever's closest to him, which is the oxygen tank, and he bangs it on the shark's nose to get him to go away, and he ends up throwing it. He misses the nose. He throws it in the shark's mouth. And so he, after being butted in the nose, he gives up and slides away, just like he just did a second ago. And now Brody's like, okay, I've only got a couple of options here. He knows he still has the rifle. There's still a rifle there. Grabs the rifle, and the boat is like, that's the interesting part, is in these final moments, is that you're right there with Brody while he's on the time clock. Is like, as he does the last few actions, the boat is like sinking and it's tilting. He goes up into like the crow's nest thing, which you climb up to the mast, and there's that lookout like way at the top. But at this point, it's getting closer and closer and closer to the water. So he climbs up it, and it's because it's the highest point on the boat, and he can be there the longest. And he's got the rifle with him, and it's the last moment. It's the last, like, hurrah. It's like the gunfight at the OK Corral, and then the shark is just coming towards Quint. Oh my God, the shark is coming towards Brody, and it's bearing down on him. And Brody's got the rifle, and he takes a shot, and I love the images they show of the shark coming towards him, and he's chewing on the tank, but it also shows like the bullets like whizzing by. So you can see that he's getting close to the shark. And without knowing about we know the oxygen tank is it can explode or whatever. Like, that from it being mentioned earlier, Chekhov's oxygen tank. But it's also, right, all you're thinking about is him hitting the shark with the rifle. You don't think about the crazy thing that could happen with a direct shot. You're just like, shoot the shark, shoot the shark, shoot the shark. And it shows like a couple of shots in the water of it, like it's just missing. And you're just like, he's getting closer and closer and closer and closer to Brody. And finally, he takes this one last aim, and he says the greatest line, which you included in your notes there, where he just looks and he's like, "Smile, you son of a bitch." And he gets the perfect shot, and it hits the oxygen tank, and everything explodes. And it's just shark guts everywhere. It's raining shark guts. And it's such a satisfying ending. Especially since, you really like Hooper. But Quint is like such a polarizing character. And here you have Brody, who's like the hero of the movie, and he survived at the end. He came really close to biting it, but he survived in the end. And it's just this really great moment of a exhale at the end that he made it. So it's just incredible. It's a great little scene there.
Oh yeah, What can you say? It's exciting. It's tense. You get the sense that this is it. This is the last stand. There's this incredible confrontation, and then you get the great line at the end, like all good action heroes get. I always kind of laugh to myself when that after it explodes, and you see like the carcass of the shark like slowly sinking, and it's just red everywhere, and I'm like, and now like every other shark within 100 miles is going to be drawn to this spot.
Yeah, no kidding. It's just like it's a sea of red. Come and feast upon.
Come and feast.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, yeah, okay. But oh yeah, I mean, what an ending, right? What a just, you know, unbelievably exciting ending, and the idea that he, you know, literally is in the crow's nest and it's like slowly getting down to the water.
It's like
You know,
melting. It's like the boat is melting, pretty much.
yeah, right. You know, and you just know that, like, okay, this guy who like clearly has issues on the water does not probably know how to swim all that well, you know, because he's avoided water his whole life. I mean, based on what we know about him, he is like seconds away from just like being in the ocean by himself.
Right.
You know, and yet and he has to deal with this massive killer shark that is closing in to get him. I mean, it's unbelievable, and wow, what an amazing ending. I mean, just excitement, and then you get the little kicker of, you know, Hooper comes up from the depths, and they have this little reunion, and they use some of Quint's barrels to like paddle into the shore. And of course, as the credits roll, we finally see them actually make it to the to the island, and they're okay. And end of the movie. So yeah, amazing stuff.
Yeah, I love the image after he gets the shot of the oxygen tank, and they show inside in the water. You just see like the shadow of the shape of the shark with, you know, just the torso to the tail, because the head is totally gone.
It's been blown up, yeah.
And it just sinks slowly in the water. It's just so, it's poetic almost.
And they play that like monster growl as it's slowly settling down to the bottom, and like you said, it's almost like, it looks almost like smoke, but it's clearly like blood that is like clouded the water, and so it's almost like a sinking ship, kind of like this massive, and it always struck me, it's like the bottom of the shark.
Yeah.
You know, like you said, the head and all of like the top part was all blowed up.
Yeah.
You know, so this is just the bottom, and it's kind of like gliding down to the, you know, to wherever the, you know, however deep it is to the bottom. I mean, yeah, it's very iconic shot.
Yeah.
Very iconic.
And then like you said, right after that, you know, you get Brody and then Hooper coming up, and then they're paddling themselves to get back to the island. And I love the line too is like, what day is it today? And they're like, it's Wednesday. No, it's Thursday. It's Thursday. You know, because they've lost track of time since they've been out of the water.
Yeah.
So
it's like, I think the tide's with us, and then Hooper's like, yeah, keep kicking.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. At this point, it won't matter, because it doesn't matter if they paddle like that, because it's not like they're gonna attract any sharks, because they finally killed the shark. So it's sort of safe for now for them to be doing what they're doing.
I don't know.
I mean,
like
at
I
least
said,
for a couple of years.
10-year-old Steve would never, ever do that. So
no. Just a couple of things I wanted to chat about too. Like, there's, you know, we always try and talk, like, we've had tons and tons of like little tidbits as we go along of like stuff we found out about, like with the filming, like you said about the re-alarm and stuff like that. We already talked through, you know, there's some Moby Dick themes that are talked about between, like, you know, the parallels between Quint and Captain Ahab, between the obsessions that they had and whatever. So we already talked about that, so that's great. But I want to make a note too that there was, I found some really great information about, there was critics at the time that called the movie a aquatic monster story. I thought this was a really great description of it. And in case people didn't know, it was nominated for like 7 or 8 Oscars, and it won 3 Oscars, but one of them was for John Williams' score, which is such an iconic part of the movie. And when you think about John Williams too, it's like all of those movies that he's created scores for, like, you cannot imagine like Indiana Jones without the Indiana Jones team. You know, you cannot imagine Star Wars without the Star Wars themes. You know, his iconic movie scores will just live on in such a way, and there's just nothing like the Jaws theme. It's just so well done. And we did have the conversation a little bit at the beginning about it being sort of the template moving forward for summer blockbusters, in terms of ad campaign and putting money behind like all of the marketing and all of that stuff, and it following through, and them making tons of money off of this movie, and releasing something like this in the summer when you got so much audience available with kids being off school and all that other stuff. So just all these really great things tied together to make this such an iconic, classic movie.
Oh yeah. I mean, this movie, and again, along with The Exorcist, which came out a little bit in '74, so it was a little bit earlier, but those two films, they like changed how the studios made movies.
Yeah.
Before that, the major studios, they released like 20 to 30 movies a year.
Yeah.
And they were small, they weren't massive budgets. They were just different movies. They were much more artistic, just a different style, different way to make film. And then these two movies came along and just made gangbuster box office, and just tons and tons of money. And the studios then went, hey, you know what? We want to have one of those or more every year.
Yeah.
And now it's gotten to the point where the studio, and obviously movies are way more expensive to make now than they were then. That's part of it. But now the studio system, the big studios, Universal, Fox, and people like that, they make far fewer movies, maybe about 10 to 15, and they make these massive franchise films that cost $200 million, they're literally, they're like, this is going to be our Jaws for this year kind of a thing.
Yeah.
So, now I asked you this before we started, but you have not read the book.
I haven't. No. But I really should.
So you should. The book's great. But the book is different. And the book, basically the movie, pretty much it's fairly close right up to the shark cage scene, and then they made a lot of changes. And basically in the book, the shark kills Hooper in the shark cage. Okay. And not only does it kill it, but it comes back up to the top of the water. And you know how like a dog will like hold like a stick in its mouth when it's running along, and so like the stick is sticking out both sides of its mouth as it's holding it. That's how the shark had Hooper when it comes up to the top. And so Quint and Brody see that Hooper, and I believe he's already dead, but maybe he's like just about to die, but he's like, he's mortally wounded because he's in the shark's mouth. So they see that Hooper's dead. Okay. Then the shark jumps into the boat, and sinks the boat, and Quint and Brody are doing everything they can to get the shark off the boat and away from them. And while they're doing that in the book, Quint takes a harpoon and he harpoons the shark. And the harpoon has a line attached to it, right? And Quint gets his feet tangled up in the line so that when the shark slides off the boat and goes back into the water, it drags Quint under with him. And so that is a very Captain Ahab kind of way to go.
Oh God, yes.
Obviously that's, I'm sure, what Benchley was doing. And so then the end of the book, the shark then surfaces and is coming to get Brody, and as it comes up to him, it dies because of all the damage that it's taken from these guys so far. And literally it just kind of glides past him and then sinks, and he sees it sink to the bottom. And the last image that Brody has is Quint's body being dragged after it down into the depths of the ocean. And so the end of the story is Brody completely by himself trying to get to shore, and I think he uses the life jackets that that Quint handed out. So different, a totally different, not nearly as cinematic, not nearly as the kind of epic confrontation ending you want that the movie does, right? Different in that they killed Hooper and Quint dies, but in a different way. So, but I highly recommend you read it because it is an incredibly well written story. And then there's another book that I remember my parents had. My parents on the bookshelf had a paperback of Jaws, and they had this other book, and it was called The Jaws Log. And I don't know if you've heard about this book.
No.
But it's like it was written in the 70s after the movie came out, and it is a behind the scenes account of making the movie. And so it has all kinds of really cool stories and anecdotes about what was going on at Martha's Vineyard for all of the weeks and weeks and weeks that the shark didn't work and they were trying to fix it. And there are all kinds of drawings and diagrams of the shark, so you can see the shark and like the tracks that they laid on the bottom of the water, on the sand that the shark ran on, and it kind of, the shark was like attached to almost like a little like tower that moved on these tracks. I mean, it's really, really interesting if you want to know the nuts and bolts of how they actually made the movie and all the problems they ran into. Because I guess when they built the shark, they only tested it in like fresh water. And so then when they put it in the salt water, it totally screwed it up. And very famously, the very first shot they ever did with the shark, it sank to the bottom of the ocean. And Spielberg is like, oh shit, and Richard Dreyfuss tells stories of, they were like literally sitting around Martha's Vineyard, and like every day they'd hear the shark is not working, and they'd be like, all right, do whatever you want. And so like Robert Shaw basically spent the entire shoot plastered. Right. Just went on just a massive bender because he's like, they're sitting around with literally nothing to do for like multiple weeks. Right. They shot all of the Amity Island stuff, all the people stuff. And that was all done. And all they had left to do was shoot all the shark stuff. And they started working. So they literally are like, well, just, hang out and we'll figure out, what's going on. And there are stories of like Richard Dreyfuss and Robert Shaw like going off and like, drinking like several bottles of Jameson's or something, and then being called to shoot scenes. And Richard Dreyfuss is like, I can like barely stand up, and we're shooting these scenes. But they're like, you got to do it. And Robert Shaw was just like plastered the whole time. I mean, it's an incredible, incredible book. I highly recommend that you look for it. I know it got re-released this year because of the 50th anniversary, and I'm sure they probably even updated it a little bit with more information. But it's called The Jaws Log. Super cool book. And again, just from my standpoint as a kid, I remember both of those books side by side on the bookshelf when I was a kid, because both my parents read Jaws and really liked it. And then when that came out, they bought that too. So
nice.
Yeah. And then the only other thing I wanted to say was, because I saw it on TV for my first time, and because they edited the film down for, violence and swears and all that kind of stuff, the TV version has several deleted scenes in it that Spielberg shot that he cut out of the theatrical. And there's a scene that happens at the beginning of the movie where we meet Quint way before we meet him in the theatrical film. And it's during the scene where it's like right after Brody they get on the ferry to go out, and the mayor's like, well, maybe it was a propeller, and the coroner's like, yeah, that's what it is. It's like right after that scene, okay? And it's Quint, and he goes into this music store. And have you ever seen the scene?
I don't think so, no.
So Quint goes into the music store, and there's a line in the theatrical movie when he's got the deep sea fishing pole and the line snaps, remember, when they try and pull it in. And of course,
Hooper is insistent that it's not a shark, it was something else. And Quint says, only a shark could like break this piano wire. And again, it's kind of a weird line because you're like, you use piano wire? Well, there's a scene early on where Quint goes into a music store and he buys like 5 spools of piano wire. And the girl there recognizes, like, hi, Mr. Quint, and they know each other. And he's like, I need more of this. And she's like, what do the fish do with this stuff? And he's like, choke on it mostly. And then there's this kid that's got like a clarinet or something, and he's trying to play Ode to Joy. And it's just like, he's like 9, right? He's like a little kid, and he's not very good. And so he's kind of like, beep, 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 but he's not doing well. And Quint is behind him, and Quint starts singing the song, kind of like, ba, 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 ba. And he gets so obsessed with it, the kid like stops playing and turns back and looks at him. It is a weird little scene, but it like that, I always like keep waiting for that scene to show up in the movie because that's how I saw the movie for years and years and years when I first started watching it. And on a lot of the Blu-rays and DVDs, they have the deleted scenes. You can see it if you own a copy of it, so it's out there. But I just wanted to mention that because that's a scene I always think of when I think of this movie is Quint humming Ode to Joy and freaking out this little kid. So anyway. Yeah. So hey, we're over 3 hours, so you want to keep going?
I know. No, it should. I mean, we should go to sleep, and I should just keep it recording, and we'll just get like, we'll get, room noise or whatever. I think I've gotten through all of my points I wanted to make, and I'm pretty sure you hit all of your stuff too. Is there anything else we should mention before we take our break?
I know there's one line I really liked where the barrels come up right next to the boat, and they're all kind of looking at him like, what does this mean? And Hooper goes over to Quint and goes, you ever have one do this before? And Quint just looks at him and goes, hell no. And it just, I really like that line, that the whole scene, because you get this real sense that both of these guys that have probably experienced hundreds of sharks in their lifetime are experiencing something for the first time. Like, this has never happened before. Right. You really get the sense that they're like, wow, what is up with this shark? Right. And anyway, it's a real quick line. I just wanted to mention it. So
yeah, it's a good one. All right, that's going to probably wrap it up for our first half. We're going to take a break and record our next 3 hours. Right after that? No,
please don't say that.
I'm kidding. We knew this one was going to be long. We're sorry, folks, but we're going to still follow our usual format. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back and discuss a little bit of listener feedback we got, and we're also going to talk about what's coming up next on the podcast.
So yes, everyone, please stick around. I know it's been long, but go to the bathroom, get something to drink, get yourself a lozenge, and then come on right back, because we'll be right back.
Hey there, this is Greg Nicotero, and you're listening to Aim for the Head podcast with Diana and Steve. And don't forget to always aim for the head, because body shots, they really just don't work.
Hey there, everybody. We are back. We're going to move right into our listener feedback and then chat a little bit about what's coming up next on the podcast. We didn't get a whole lot of feedback, which I was very surprised by. But to be fair, usually when we discuss a movie, we don't get feedback at all. So just getting one piece was actually kind of a win. So this comes from my pal Wendy Eppers. I know Wendy through the Podcastica network, and she is a podcaster herself. So hey, Wendy, thank you so much for sending in your thoughts. And Wendy said via the Facebooks, she says, I watched Jaws in the theaters for the 50th anniversary. So did we. Oh my God, we have so much in common. And she says it absolutely still holds up. It's a masterclass in making us believe something we can't really see. Love the acting and the direction, way ahead of its time. Excellent. Thank you, Wendy. We completely agree. We literally just talked for 3 hours about how it yes, it does hold up, but the big thing that it gained was that it made you afraid of something you couldn't see. I would say that's its legacy is definitely, being afraid of something you can't really even describe, because nobody saw it until, he was face to face with it at the chum line. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, agreed on all those counts. We can't really see it. The acting's great, and a lot of the choices that Spielberg made directorially were things like we were talking about how they would be reproduced later and copied. So yeah, they were definitely ahead of their time for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time to give us your thoughts on the movie, Wendy. We appreciate it.
We do. Yeah. Thank you.
So coming up next on the podcast, we're going to veer slightly to the right on 1970s movies. Next up, we're going to cover a classic. Is it a classic in its own head? A classic for reals?
Oh, it's a classic. Believe me.
It is a classic. It is 1977's Kingdom of the Spiders. This is Steve's suggestion. He says that, well, why should I say it? What's your reasoning behind our choice of Kingdom of the Spiders as our next thing to cover, which will be in 2 weeks?
Well, the reasoning is that what drew you to The Walking Dead in the first place was not entirely horror. It was much more apocalypse.
Correct.
It was much more end of the world, which is one of your jams, one of the things that you are interested in, like to see movies, stories about, so on. And most of the movies that we have reviewed when we're not doing series, they tend to be horror movies, for the most part, right? Whether they were the Romero zombie movies or The Thing or The Shining or whatever, that's like Jaws and so on. And I just thought, there are so many apocalypse stories out there with different ways of the world ending. Very creative people have imagined lots of interesting ways for the world to end. And other than doing like Fury Road and Furiosa, we haven't really delved into anything that wasn't zombie or horror related. And so I thought, let's check out some of the other stuff. And so I know of Kingdom of the Spiders. It is a classic 70s movie. It has William Shatner
I can't wait.
In all of his 70s Shatner glory. And it's a movie about spiders, and so that there's all these tarantulas that are running around, and it's campy and it's hokey. I love the ending. The ending is great. It's definitely one you remember. And so, there definitely are a couple of creepy crawly moments in it as the spiders are running around killing people and stuff. So anyway, it just seemed like a good one to pick because it's fun. And it fortunately for everybody, it is available on Tubi for free if you don't have any of the pay services. And I believe what you said, it was on Amazon as well.
It's on Prime as well. But if you don't have Prime,
okay,
Tubi's a really good selection as well.
So that there are a couple of ways to approach it. If you are a fan of Svengoolie, he has shown Kingdom of the Spiders several times, over the years. So it has definitely been around. I remember when it came out back in the 70s, it was definitely one of those, you got to watch that movie. It's about all the spiders, man. And so, yeah, it's a lot of fun. And I just thought, let's dip our toe into the apocalypse pool a little bit more and go into something that's more into Diana's side of the appeal,
right.
So it's not all horror.
Right.
And then when I found out you had never seen it, I'm like, well, of course we have to do it now so you can experience the awesome amazeballness of Kingdom of the Spiders.
Yes. I have a feeling that I maybe have caught like a couple of minutes here and there, like when I was younger, because I do remember there being a couple of movies with whether it was spiders or ants or things like that, and it was and I do remember William Shatner, but I was young, and I honestly think it didn't leave an impression. I think I only saw a few minutes of whatever it was.
Okay.
So this is great because I can't wait to watch it and see if it's so I have like a sort of a memory of seeing like whatever scene or couple of scenes were there. So I'm looking forward to being able to sort of match that up and see if is that the one that I'm thinking of, or was it some other movie I caught a few minutes of. So we'll see.
Oh yeah, it'll be really fun. I think. I think you're going to enjoy it. It's in that era where there were a lot of stories and movies coming out about like pollution and chemicals. You know, like big companies dumping all these chemicals into the water and the ground. A lot of those things were starting to come out for real. You know, DuPont was getting sued by people and things like that. And so a lot of these creative folks were like imagining worst case scenario of like, okay, all the pesticides and the DDT that we're using to kill mosquitoes is changing the ecosystem. And now you have, you know, in this case, mutated spiders, or you have giant ants, or whatever it is. Like you said, there was a whole series of movies. Like there's a movie called Frogs. Okay. and it's great because Ray Milland's in it, and I'm blanking on his name. The guy, oh man, he's got the great voice. He was in Roadhouse, and he was in The Big Lebowski. Sam Elliott, that's it. He plays this ecologist guy, and he goes to this island, and all the reptiles are like rising up to kill people. It again, 70s campy, you know, kind of like laugh when you're not supposed to laugh kind of moments. But there was a whole bunch of movies like that that all came out right in that time frame. So I'm not surprised that you have memories of watching either Kingdom of the Spiders or one of those films. You know, there was Empire of the Ants with Joan Collins. There was just a movie called Ants that had Suzanne Summers in it. I mean, there were a whole bunch of films from that era, from that kind of, you know, 5-6 year period from like 75 to 80 that dealt with all of that kind of stuff. So I'm really looking forward to it because I like that movie. It's a lot of fun. I always liked it as a kid. It always struck a chord with me. And I'm really interested and excited to hear if you liked it, or you're going to be like, oh my God, this is terrible. So either way, it's going to be fun.
I can't wait. I really can't. It's going to be good times. And like you said, it's going to combine all of those things together. Like, and it's a quick one. From what I looked up, it's only like an hour and a half long. So it'll be a quick watch, and I'm looking forward to, because it looked like it's going to be all kinds of campy fun. Very excited. So just a couple more things before we wrap up. First of all, just want to give a shout out to everybody who interacted with us during our fun 31 Days of Horror. It was our first time doing something that was that long. We've done like 12 Days of Christmas and 12 Days of Horror in the past. So this was a really long one, and keeping up with it was a challenge for me, doing all the social media, but I thought it was a lot of fun. We got a lot of interaction with people and started conversations, and people brought up movies I either didn't think of or didn't look at it in that way. It was just so interesting to see how people's mind worked, how they would choose what movie over another. So there's that. Fantastic. One of the great things that came out of it was, and we can sort of table this for a discussion on another day, but I used as, and I can't remember, I think it was the prompt about like creepy neighbors or something like that. And what made me think of really right off the bat was Hitchcock's Rear Window. And Rear Window is another one of my all-time favorite movies. And I posed the question when I posted it, if anyone would ever be interested in us covering that. And there was a lot of positive response to that. So I did make note of that. If you are one of the people that made a note about us covering Rear Window or even Hitchcock in general. So I have made note of that, and we will be having discussion about that for coverage in the future. Without question, Rear Window. I love that movie so much. That's another one that I could talk for hours about.
See, now what I would counter, if you were to, first of all, I love Rear Window, and we certainly can talk about it if you want to, but I would counter, if we were going to do that, why don't we do Body Double? Because Body Double is a movie Brian De Palma made in like 1985, and it takes the plot of Vertigo and the plot of Rear Window and smushes them together, because Brian De Palma loves
Alfred Hitchcock and does homages to him in every movie he's ever made.
Oh.
So that would be my suggestion, in that you get an 80s version of those two stories, which includes Frankie Goes to Hollywood performing Relax, Don't Do It on a porn set. And I'm not making this
I
up.
believe you wholeheartedly. I would then counter, why not cover all three? Do Vertigo,
We could.
cover Rear Window, and then do Body Double.
Window,
Why not?
sure.
All of
Absolutely.
those things.
I think, if there's enough time and hours in the day, I say
Let's do it. So yes, covering Hitchcock in general and Rear Window in specific is definitely something we'll have a conversation about. And again, lots and lots of thanks to people that interacted during the 31 Days of Horror. It was a lot of fun, and I'd love to try it again next year when we hit the spooky season as well. Just wanted to throw out there that the Welcome to Derry premiered last week. I know, Steve, that you had started watching it. I've got it in the DVR, and it's on the list of things to get to. I've been hearing positive things, so hoping folks have been watching that as well. You said you enjoyed it, though, so far.
I did, yeah. It's unfortunately, if you're familiar with it,
Mm-hmm.
From what I've gathered, and I've only seen episode 1, which dropped last week, and then episode 2 I think just dropped last night. So they're just early on in it, but pretty much the Welcome to Derry, it's basically setting up to be the same basic story as it, in that you have a group of kids are going to try and stop Pennywise.
Yeah.
It's just an earlier group of kids from, different from the movie. But, anytime we can bring Dick Halloran from The Shining to our universe, I'm all on board for it. And Halloran's in the book, so it's not a complete shock or surprise, but just the fact that they carried through with it, I'm super excited. And we've not really met him. I think you see him very briefly in episode 1, but he doesn't really do much yet. And so I'm really excited to see what they're going to do with that character. Excellent. And from what I can tell, there's a lot of little nods to various Stephen King stories and properties, whether it's Shawshank Redemption or The Mist or any of the things that he's done. They're all kind of like little bits and things in there where you're like, oh, I know what that is. So I'm looking forward to it. And like I said, I enjoyed it. The first one had just enough creepy in it to make it fun.
Nice. So. Excellent. Definitely on the docket for something to be watching for sure. Also, just as a reminder, there's a couple of shows coming up that we are talking about covering. We're not sure what pattern we're going to do it in, but it's in discussion right now. So Stranger Things will be starting up again just before Thanksgiving. They're going to drop the first grouping of episodes. So this is the 26th of November. So set not your DVRs, because it's going to be on Netflix. And also, just as a reminder, we've talked about it as well, that Fallout Season 2 will premiere on December the 17th, which is a Wednesday. So right now, obviously, we want to cover both of those shows, but we want to put together a schedule that will make sense, which we're still working on. And when we have more detail, we will get that to you as well. I'm doing a rewatch of Stranger Things right now, and I am loving every minute of it. I could rewatch forever. Such a great show. Good times. Anything else we need to chat about before we wrap up this marathon podcast?
No, I think that's pretty much it. I think the only other thing I'm super excited about is The Running Man's coming out.
Yes.
In the next little bit. And if you have not started to see the trailers for it yet, which I have been seeing a lot of, I will point out that Coleman Domingo is the game show host, the Richard Dawson character from the Schwarzenegger version of The Running Man. Yeah. So, the man is a phenomenal actor. And so right there, the fact that he's in this, it's going to be interesting and entertaining just to watch him act. So, I hope they do a good job with it. I hope they stick the landing on it. But that's what I'm excited for right now.
Yeah, excellent. I am very excited for it as well. can't wait to go and see it. So that's it. That's going to wrap it up for us this week, folks. We look forward to chatting with you again when we chat about Kingdom of the Spiders. Not sure if it was heard when we were talking about it a few minutes back, but we will be covering that. It'll be in 2 weeks. So we'll get some posts out there, some social media to get some thoughts on the movie. Probably about 4 or 5 days before we're going to record, but yeah, look for that. We're going to be recording on that on Monday the 17th. So it gives you a couple of weeks to get to see the movie if you haven't before. And like we said, it's on Prime for free if you're a Prime member. If you don't subscribe to Prime, it's available on Tubi. So we look forward to covering that. But until next time, as always, I'm Diana.
And I'm Steve.
Don't forget to always aim for the head.
Because those body shots, they just don't work. To send us an email, write us at aimfortheheadpodcast@gmail.com. And our Twitter handle is @AFTH Podcast. Pictures and video are always welcome at our Instagram account, Aim for the Head Podcast, all one word. But the best way to keep in touch with us is to just like our Facebook page to get all of our updates in your feed.
I don't know. That's why it's your show, and I just show up and do what I you ask me questions and I answer them.
You sit by the mic and look cute.
That's my thing. I show off the cleavage. And,
whoa.